Welcome to Quick Hits, a JFK assassination news and notes podcast with your hosts, Rob Clark and Doug Campbell.
Thank you, Grant. Welcome to Quick Hits, everybody, a JFK assassination research news and notes podcast. I'm 50% of your hosting duo, Rob Clark, and along with me today and every other time on this show, Mr. Doug Campbell, host of the Dallas Action.
Well, hello, Rob. Good to talk to you, buddy. How you been?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. Just living that COVID life, you know.
We are living that COVID life. Grant Wilson, producer Grant Wilson, how you been, buddy?
Been all right, man.
Very busy. Grant's been very busy, as have we all. It's been a busy year. Well, Rob, it is exceptionally good to speak with you, my friend. Let's get started, shall we?
Yes, and thankfully Grant is not busy today as he was last week, or we would have had this show out to you a week ago.
That wasn't Grant's fault.
I know it wasn't Grant's fault.
Trying to make it work.
What they're speaking of, dear listeners, is Grant was working his ass off a week ago today, doing literally 2 sessions at once, recording us and recording. Was it a full band down there, Grant? A full band in the other studio, and we had some technical difficulties that I was not aware of. So here we are with number 14. We're all back together. We also, I should say, we have a special guest in the studio today, guys. My youngest son, Harrison Campbell, is with us today.
Hey, Harrison.
Observing, kind of hanging out with us. Harrison, you could say hello. The folks can hear you, too, as well. There he is. I'm not sure what he said, but I'm sure it was probably funny. All right, Rob, let's get this thing going. We have some sad news to start the podcast off with.
We do. Now, Harrison, get out your notebook. This is how you do a podcast, son. You're about to learn some great things,
and also some great things not to do.
Exactly.
Take copious notes, son.
We are going to kick off the show paying tribute to one of the, well, if not one of the first vocal detractor of the Warren Commission report, and that is Mr. Vince Salandria, who passed away last month at the age of 92, Doug. Very, very sad loss for the research community.
Incredibly sad loss. This guy was a visionary, but he's a giant among folks like us. The amount of people who have been inspired to dig into this thing, search for the truth, and convinced, rightfully so, that the Warren Report was complete bullshit. Like I say, inspired by Mr. Salandria. So much work that he did, good work through the years. Where do you even start, you know?
Dude, I don't know. I mean, he was a lawyer from Philadelphia. And he used simple logic and asking really pertinent questions that needed to be answered. And I think he saw through the Warren Commission bullshit almost instantly. and he wrote articles, many great articles. He contributed to books over the years, and just an inspiration, to folks like Mark Lane. And, I think without Vince Salandria being brave enough as a lawyer to actually make his opinion known, the Warren Commission was made up of mostly lawyers, okay? To make his opinion publicly known and in print, a very brave man, and he deserves all our utmost respect in the research community for being a pioneer in this business.
A great article was written about Mr. Salandria in the wake of his passing at the Truth and Reconciliation Committee website by John Kirby. Mr. John Kirby, and I want to read a little bit of that, Rob, hear what he writes. And I want to read a little bit of this introduction written by Christopher Sherritt to the book False Mystery, a 1999 collection of Mr. Salandria's speeches and articles. But this part here, Mr. Kirby writes that Vince insisted on asking fundamental questions that cut through the official propaganda. With an attorney's clear logic, he asked with perfect simplicity, what would an honest government do? It was the test the authorities consistently failed at the time of the assassination, and one we would do well to apply more vigorously today. I think we're still doing that. But when he applying just that logic, what would an honest investigation do? What would an honest government do? It fails at every turn. And one of the most interesting things that I did not know previous that I've learned about Mr. Salandria since his passing is that he predicted Oswald being killed while in custody. That, just hours after Oswald's arrested, he told people he knew, people in his circle, now you watch, this guy ain't going to live to get to his arraignment. You watch. And sure enough, what happened?
Yeah, we see Oswald gunned down most promptly.
Here's
on
that
live
section.
television.
Yeah, exactly. Here's that section, Rob. On November 22nd, the day of the assassination, Salandria watched the unfolding narrative on television with his brother-in-law, the late Harold Feldman. Many friends of Salandria recount his responses to that day. Salandria noted at the first moments of this crime that it reeked of a government coup, and that the confirmation of his suspicion would be the murder of the alleged suspect while in custody. He observed that from the first hours of the case, the pronouncements of the government as carried by the major media contained a consciousness of guilt at the center of state power. At no time did the government entertain seriously the possibility of a conspiracy to kill Kennedy, even as local authorities in Dallas and the mainstream media offered a steady stream of evidence pointing to conspiracy. Witnesses and physicians saying that Kennedy was shot from two directions. Witnesses running to the grassy knoll in front of the motorcade, as well as into buildings behind the motorcade. More than one rifle found. Thank you very much. Various suspects detained. Gun smoke smelled at ground level. A bystander wounded. Although many of these reports could have been in error, Salandria noted that the federal authorities, if honest, would have pursued these reports rather than shut down their options and proclaim the guilt of one man, a warehouse worker named Lee Harvey Oswald. Totally agree with him there. And if you need, was it Curry or Wade that made that comment just a few hours after the murder? We've got Oswald wrapped up in a nice, neat bow. Which one said that, Curry or Wade, Rob?
Might have been Fritz.
Was it Fritz? Actually, okay. I get all those D-bags mixed up, kind of.
Any one of them could have said it.
Yeah. They're all old country dudes in white Stetsons. After a while, they just all blend together, right?
Right. Old white guys.
Yeah, old white guys. Here's some more from Mr. Sherritt, Christopher Sherritt's introduction to this book. This collection of the works of Vincent Salandria. He says, Salandria showed how the government's own evidence completely undermined its conclusions. And that reminds me of that thing David Joseph says. The evidence is the conspiracy, right?
That's right. That's a great phrase. Great phrase.
His argument was bolstered many times over in his liberation pieces written after the commission had issued its 26 volumes. While critics have repeated ad nauseum the particulars of Salandria's argument, few, it seems to me, have apprehended Salandria's perspective and sensibility as he studied this data. I agree 100%. This guy was pretty prescient, Rob. All through the years. And he always taught a college course on this too, right? On the assassination.
That I don't know about.
You don't? I thought he did. I thought he taught it various college courses over the years. But, Mae Brussell, he was a big inspiration to Mae Brussell. I remember hearing, you can go back to her archive and listen to her talk all about that long article that he published in Computer and Automation magazine back in late 71, which is a fantastic article. I absolutely, I might have the name of it here. I'm sorry, I don't know. Just Computer and Automation, December of 1971 was that article, Rob.
Yes.
And go back and find that article. It's awesome. And like I say, it was a big inspiration on Mae Brussell.
Yep. Rest in power, Mr. Vince Salandria.
Yeah, the guy, it's like you said, he inspired people like Mark Lane and Weisberg. He inspired the people who inspired you and I, right?
Yeah,
And
he inspired the people who inspired the people who inspired the people who inspired you and I. Yes.
yeah. and maybe we will be the people that inspire folks like my young son Harrison out there.
Yeah, I think we inspire a few people.
We do. Hey, I remember being very proud of him back in telling somebody years ago, it might have even been you, that, hey, my son's 11 years old and he knows who David Ferry was. So, we are, some of us are doing our diligence in passing this thing down and trying to get more people interested in finding the truth about what happened in the tradition of Vincent J. Salandria and more than a little bit in his honor. Right, Rob?
Yeah, as long as he doesn't start shaving his eyebrows and wearing a piece of carpet on his head, I think he'll be just fine. You
mean like David Ferry?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's Harrison I'm referring to.
I thought you were talking about that new JFK show.
No.
Okay.
Although Gary King does resemble David Ferry just a little bit.
Well...
More and more every day.
Sans wig, maybe.
Must be the nuts.
It must be something in the water down there. Who knows, man? Who knows? But anyway, yes, Vincent Salandria, we're going to miss you. Thank you for all you did for us. Now, topic number 2. Rob, my outline says I am to bring topic number 2. Is this correct?
Yes, okay. You are, sir.
All right.
Unless you would like me to go first and then you go and then I'll go, it doesn't matter.
We can adhere to the, hey, now let's not get crazy. You know how I am about my outlines.
I know. You're very anal.
Very, 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 very about this. I do have an interesting document to share with you and producer Grant and young Harrison and the listeners.
Lay it on us.
It is another one of those weird things that pops up in the middle of a giant file, Rob. Again. But this one is strange. Now, you know how usually you'll have even if it's something, if it's a document, a standalone document in a big file, you'll get that cover memo authorship thing. This is written by, might be a staffer, might be an FBI agent, who knows? Well, this is a House Select Committee on Assassinations document.
Totally out of place.
Totally out of place in a document, in this big file that has a lot of standalone things. Some files you look through, everything in that file will pertain to a common subject matter, right? Well, this is one of those deals where it doesn't. It's just an innocuous few pages, a House Select Committee on Assassinations document that lays out evidence for conspiracy. And I thought I would run down some of these points and bounce them off you and get your take on this. What do you think?
Pray tell. Let's do it.
This document here seems to fall squarely on our side of the fence. And
evidence for conspiracy.
Right. And I don't think it's really a memo because, like I say, there's no cover page or anything. And it's actually sandwiched between two things. A standard list of Jim Garris's witnesses to the grand jury, which is, 67, 68, and a House Select Committee on Assassinations report on Lee Oswald's employment and living arrangements during the time he was in Dallas between the alleged Mexico City trip and the assassination. Sandwiched in between all that is this, and the heading is The Existence of a Conspiracy, the Involvement of More Than One Assassin, Though Not Excluding Lee Oswald. Now, here's point number 1. Commission Exhibit 399, which is the famous magic bullet. Commission Exhibit 399 did not cause all the wounds attributed to it. All right. Next, A, 399 was undamaged and unmarked. 1. 399 weighed 158.6 grains out of a possible 160 to 161 grains. There was testimony, which was undisputed, that there is a standard deviation of 2.0 grains in the weight of that type of manufactured bullet. Robert Frazier, FBI. And that guy made his... Now, an aside here, Rob. You, years ago, pointed out Robert Frazier's testimony to me. That's the smoking gun testimony right there. This FBI ballistics guy. Now, guys, this is the guy that also went up and told them that the FBI cannot conclusively link 399 with the barrel of the Oswald rifle to the exclusion of all other barrels, and that the lands and grooves on the Warren Commission test bullets and $3.99 were significantly different.
Don't match.
Don't match. Well, what he said was there were significant differences, which means significantly different, which means way not the same. And it's this
which
guy.
They attributed to the improper storage of the rifle for 15 years. But
I don't buy that.
It remains that they don't match.
That's right. And here's what he says here. Thus, the slight loss of weight in this bullet could be accounted for simply from deviations in manufacture within statistically permissible bounds. The bullet was devoid of blood, tissue, fabric threads, or impressions. Now, this is a big point you never hear. All right? A bullet which passes through tissue would leave such marks unless wiped off. Even more important, a bullet would retain the impressions of threads even if wiped. Parenthetically, testimony of Frazier that the bullet was devoid of blood and tissue. Testimony of Joseph Nicole, lack of threads and impressions from fabric or threads at 3H505, whatever that means. I think that's a reference to somewhere in the testimony there. But what do you say about that, Rob? No, about the thread thing. That even if you wipe it off, it's going to have impressions of thread, and it went through what? Went through allegedly the jacket, Kennedy's jacket, Kennedy's shirt, allegedly.
Kennedy's tie, Connolly's jacket, Connolly's shirt.
And then back out Connolly's shirt, right? Because it had to exit through the front.
Wrist of his jacket and his shirt, and then into his pants through his... I mean, you'd think there would be a little bit of fabric on this goddamn bullet.
7 articles of clothing this bullet allegedly passed through, but retained not one impression of threads or fabric or one bit of threads or fabric. And the person writing this memo seems to contend that is prima facie proof that it did not pass through any clothing whatsoever.
We call that a problem.
A big problem for lone nutters anyway, and for adherers to the Warren Report. And we brought that up last week. Like, why do lone nutters even lean on the Warren Commission report after the issuance of the House Select Committee on Assassination opinion? It is beyond me. It's beyond me. Now, this is the Humes and Fink.
The old note burner.
The old note burners. Says here that Doctors Humes and Fink testified to the Warren Commission that 399 could not have caused all the wounds as alleged under the Commission's single bullet theory. Dr. Shaw and Gregory termed such an occurrence highly unlikely. I agree.
As do I. And that's a big, that is a big statement that all you conspiracy theorists out there can throw in the face of any lone nutter you see.
Point number 2 under this heading, Rob. Commission Exhibit 399 could not have caused the wound in Connolly's thigh since the fragment left in the leg, while not removed and thus not weighed, would probably account for more than the total weight of the bullet. For similar reasons, the bullet seems unlikely to have caused the wounds to Connolly's chest. Although within the realm of possibility, it seems likely that breaking a rib would have caused more damage than exhibited by 399. There is an additional problem of the lack of fiber, threads, or impressions since the bullet would have passed through this cloth.
Yeah, I mean, unless the bullet is getting itself wiped off in the tissue, as it passes through all these different layers. And I will say, John Connolly's a damn lucky man. It's a good thing he wasn't hung like John Holmes or something, or it could have been catastrophic for him.
That might have damaged the bullet, too.
Yeah, it might have. 399 might look significantly different than it does today.
There's that phrase again, significantly different. This part's interesting.
God bless him.
God bless him. This part's interesting. A fragment was found in the back or neck wound at the point of entrance. The slight weight loss of $3.99 combined with the presence of the neck fragment makes it impossible that $3.99 was responsible for this damage.
Lots of very good points being brought up here.
Yeah, and having to do with the weight, the weight of the bullet and fragments left in bodies, left in people.
Yeah, it was a good thing they didn't have an MRIs back then, or Connolly would have been stuck to the middle of the damn thing with all that metal he had in him.
It had a lot. I get what we're saying, guys, is Connolly had more metal left in him than was missing from the bullet. And if that doesn't convince you that that's not that bullet, you're hopeless. I don't have anything else for you. There's nothing I can do for you.
Yeah, that's what we call, again, a problem.
Cognitive dissonance. Yeah, that's the biggest problem. Look here, number F. The rifle was first identified as a 7.65 Mauser, and this is 100% true. Those who first discovered the rifle on the 6th floor, Boone and Weitzman, Dallas cops, identified the gun as a 7.65 Mauser rather than a Mannlicher Carcano rifle supposedly belonging to Oswald. Deputy Constable Seymour Weitzman, who along with Sheriff Boone discovered the rifle during a search of the 6th floor of the depository, signed an affidavit for the Dallas police in which they stated that this rifle was a 7.65 Mauser bolt-action rifle equipped with a .418 scope, a thick leather brownish black sling. These affidavits do exist. One of these guys, I can't remember if it was Boone or Weitzman, had owned a sporting goods store that sold rifles for 21 years.
Yeah.
And
you'd think they'd know.
You'd think, if you read the affidavits, they say stamped on the barrel.
Yeah.
All right.
Roger Craig says stamped right on the barrel, 7.65 Mauser.
And in 1971, they recanted. Oh, we just made a mistake. I'm sorry. A law enforcement officer with a sporting goods store does not make that mistake. Period.
And spoiler alert, folks, on the next Lone Gunman podcast that will be released, I believe it's on the 19th or 20th of September, and I'll give you a sneak preview right now because it's pertinent to this conversation. While researching some other facts that will come out on the next show about the Johnson 30-06 rifle.
Oh, yeah.
I came across a very interesting nugget. Michael T. Griffiths, who was the author of the paper that I was looking at, was examining different rifles found in Dealey Plaza and different shot scenarios and misses. And something that came to the attention of the ARRB was an envelope from the Dallas Police Department, and on it was marked 7.65 shell.
Really?
And inside the envelope, there was nothing. Nothing.
Wow.
So, take that for what it's worth.
The questions that raises. Where was it found?
I thought
on
that was
a rooftop, by a window, on the ground, on the hill, on the knoll. What did they see and when did they see it?
Yep.
Now, that's amazingly interesting.
Yeah, it sure is.
Downright damn tantalizing, dude.
I know.
So the ARRB became aware of it or actually obtained the envelope?
They obtained the envelope.
They have the envelope.
They have the envelope.
Wow. Have you seen a photo of it at all?
I have not.
If anybody knows where there might be a photo of this thing around, I'd sure like to see that.
Yeah, so tune in to the Lone Gunman this coming weekend for more on all this rifle business.
Man, I can't wait for that. You've made me wait like 6 weeks for a Lone Gunman now.
Hey, goddamn, I just dropped one yesterday, and there's another one coming next week.
You did?
What more do you want from me? Yeah.
Where
you been?
I completely missed it. Wait a minute. Hold on, guys. Let me check my Spreaker app because we love Spreaker.com. We absolutely do. Episode 170, ladies and gentlemen, of Agent Oswald.
Yes.
Is up. What time yesterday did you drop this?
Oh, it must have been around noonish.
Around noonish. Harrison, what was I doing around noonish? May have been napping, Rob. I'm just going to have to go ahead and admit that. I may have been napping. Okay.
You must have swiped that notification half asleep.
Half asleep. We did have a few power outage problems in the holler yesterday. So now, one more point I want to make from this one: the lack of fibers in Connolly's wound from this evidence for conspiracy in this ballistics thing. Check this out. It says there were no fibers found in the entrance wound in Connolly's back. The neck bullet clearly passed through JFK's clothing, both in his back and possibly when passing through his anterior neck. Talking about the nick and the tie. If 399 had passed through JFK before striking Connolly, fibers would have been found in his initial wound. Another great point.
Yes, and the lone nutters are screaming, well, the bullet went in sideways. So maybe it didn't quite make it into the wound.
It came out, didn't it?
True.
It came out of Connolly's chest. So, yeah, it had to have gone all the way through.
I know. I'm just being a voice of antagonism here.
Well, yeah, boy, I tell you, we get plenty of that out of the lone nutters. Still, I'm going to go back to that question I asked last time, Rob. Why they even care enough to antagonize us, I don't know. Haven't figured that out yet.
Get a life, people.
But I thought that was an interesting document. Somebody at the HSCA, it kind of sounds like it may have been a Gaten Fonzie memo in a way to me. So,
yeah,
sure. That was interesting. Somebody over there was thinking clearly anyway during that time period, were they not?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you for that, Doug. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome, sir.
Now I got something here I came across. Seems somebody inherited Dallas Police Detective Sergeant, whatever he was, Gerald Hill, his, what do you call it, file cabinet.
Well, that would be interesting to go through, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and they are selling shit out of it on eBay as we speak. But, they posted some of the documents and some of the stuff that you can buy individually. And so I blew them up so I could read them. And I'm going to share them with you here today. There's a couple interesting things in here. Now, there were some accusations about Gerald Hill speaking to Jack Ruby on November 22nd, 1963. He definitely knew him. He definitely hung out in the Carousel Club. But something prompted Gerald Hill to write a letter to Chief Jesse Curry. And he says, Sir, on Friday, December 20th of 1963, Captain Jones and I had a conference concerning information he had received while investigating the Jack Ruby incident. Captain Jones stated he had heard I'm trying to read his cursive, so that's why I sound like this. That he had heard a rumor that on Friday, November 22nd, I had a conversation with Jack Ruby at the police building and had been overheard to say he could see Oswald anytime he wanted to. This statement is not true.
Yes, I've never heard that.
Yeah, there's a page skipped, and basically he is saying that it couldn't have happened because he was in, he was in Houston on November the 24th, 1963, when Ruby shot Oswald. He wasn't in Dallas. Respectfully submitted, Gerald Hill, blah, blah, blah.
But the accusation was that he spoke to Ruby on the 22nd, right?
Yeah, yep. And it's not out of the realm of possibility. We know Ruby was in the police station. We have pictures of it.
He was all over the police station all weekend.
Yeah, Gerald Hill was all over the crime scenes, the 3 crime scenes that weekend, conveniently. We know many witnesses put Gerald Hill in the Carousel Club. And we'll talk about one later, as a matter of fact. Right. But also another document that was attached to this that just stood out to me like a sore thumb in Gerald Hill's file cabinet was, I guess it was a questionnaire that the HSCA had sent to him about possibly questioning him for the HSCA investigation. Okay. Now, one of the questions is typed. Now, it says, if any, possible reasons why, or likelihood witness is apt to claim the Fifth Amendment when questioned. Okay?
All right.
Now, it says Gerald Hill was employed by the Dallas Police Department in 1963. He was present during the arrest of Lee Harvey Oswald. He also knew Jack Ruby, which he admits to, and would frequent the Carousel Club, which he admits to. Okay? Now, as to why he would possibly invoke his Fifth Amendment rights, that is the right of, he doesn't have to answer the question for fear that he will incriminate himself.
Right.
Right. He says Hill's possible involvement in or knowledge of payoffs to the DPD by Jack Ruby, or the providing of misinformation to authorities investigating the assassination, that means the FBI, or the shooting of Lee Harvey Oswald, make it possible he would invoke the Fifth Amendment.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
The spreading disinformation part, especially,
Providing misinformation to the FBI that was investigating the assassination.
So he may have to plead the Fifth over one of those issues if called by the House Select Committee on Assassinations.
Right. Payoffs to the DPD, providing misinformation to the FBI, or pertaining to the shooting of Lee Harvey Oswald, make it possible he would invoke the Fifth Amendment.
That's really, that in itself is a little incriminating.
Yeah. Couple that with the fact that he made sure he was way the hell out of Dallas on November 24th when Ruby did actually finally shoot Lee Harvey Oswald.
I didn't put those two together. I hadn't, but you're right. He's talking to Ruby on the 22nd, and then he's, I wonder how far Houston is from Dallas. I don't even know, but that's a long-ass way,
Yeah.
Hey, don't look at me. I was out of town that weekend. It's that it's that whole thing. Gerald Hill. Yeah, he doesn't get as much scrutiny as, say, Westbrook does from researchers, I don't think. Captain William Westbrook, who, if you ask me, Westbrook, he deserves quite a bit of scrutiny. I think that dude was wrapped up in it somehow.
Correct. Now, I got a very problematic document for you, Douglas.
Problematic, sir?
Yes.
Lay it on me.
On many levels. It's an FBI document. It's a teletype from November 29th, 1963, urgent, to the director from Special Agent in Charge, Dallas. Assassination of President Kennedy, November 22, 63, Dallas, Texas. Regarding a telephone call from Inspector Don Moore, November 28 last. Interview of Mrs. Ruth Payne reflects that she did not know Oswald was going to Mexico, and after Oswald showed up in Dallas on November 4 last, neither he nor his wife furnished any info to Mrs. Payne to the effect that Oswald had been in Mexico.
Hold up.
Yes.
November 4th?
Yes.
Wasn't it October 5th or 6th when he came back from Mexico? Allegedly?
Yeah, it October 4th.
This blows up the whole timeline. And this is Ruth saying that, right? Ruth Payne.
Yeah. Apparently being interviewed by the FBI.
Well, obviously it's a typo. Somewhere later along in the memo, I imagine they mention the date again and correct themselves, don't they?
They do. He says, neither he nor his wife furnished any info to Mrs. Payne to the effect that Oswald had been in Mexico. In fact, Oswald claimed that he had been in Houston and then had been in Dallas a few days before he called his wife at Mrs. Payne's home on November 4 last.
Well, they mentioned the date again, but they did not correct themselves. They repeated this. Either they're repeating the same mistake, or Ruth Payne had her story whacked up, because this does not compute whatsoever. So, at all.
Right. And he denies ever going to Mexico. He never mentioned it to Ruth Payne or Marina. and said that he'd been in Houston and then had been in Dallas.
He denied ever going to Mexico. That's a little different than saying the not disclosing that you had gone to Mexico. So obviously it sounds like it came up in the conversation.
He says Oswald claimed he had been in Houston and that had been in Dallas a few days before he called his wife at Mrs. Payne's home on November 4 last.
Now, when you read this memo, do you get the sense that it's describing what Ruth told him, like Ruth Payne says he denied going to Mexico, or is this something that the FBI is stating from maybe their conversations and questioning with Oswald?
This seems like some news from Ruth Payne.
Okay, yeah. He told us he didn't go to Mexico, Marina and I. He said he's been in Houston for a month. Or a month and a half.
Yeah. It blatantly says, interview of Ruth Payne reflects that she did not know Oswald was going to Mexico. And after Oswald showed up in Dallas on November 4 last, neither he nor his wife furnished any info to Mrs. Payne to the effect that Oswald had even went to Mexico. In fact, Oswald claimed that he'd been in Houston and he'd been in Dallas a few days before he called his wife at Mrs. Payne's home on November 4 last.
Yeah, there's a big difference in a few days and a month.
There is.
But we know, like I said, that blows the whole timeline up because we can put Oswald in certain places and around certain people, in Dallas after the 4th, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's strange.
So is this it's very strange. Is it a typo on the or a mistake in the writing of the memo, or by a stenographer typing the memo, or had Ruth Payne just not had her damn story straight at that point?
Right.
Or somebody hadn't straightened her story out for her at that point.
Yeah, it's very, very strange.
I keep going back to, guys, if you when you're talking about Ruth Payne, and guys, you can go to historymatters.com. And I know Rob's familiar with this site. And at historymatters.com, you can find what's left of scanned, digitized, PDF form, what didn't get destroyed, the grand jury testimony from the Garrison investigation. And Marina Oswald's testimony to Jim Garrison is pretty damn enlightening. There's one part where Garrison asks her, do you know if Ruth Payne was affiliated with a Central Intelligence Agency or not? And Marina says, I don't know, but the Secret Service told me she was.
Right.
Just straight says, the Secret Service told me not to trust her because she was connected with CIA. Which, if you believe that Ruth Payne was a de facto sort of babysitter for Marina, during that time, it makes sense. It totally makes sense. There's so much about that woman that it's almost like it only makes sense if you assume that she's connected to intelligence in some kind of way, some way, shape, form, or fashion,
Yeah,
why
it's crazy.
But November 4th, that is interesting. Yeah. Very strange.
Yeah.
Can you send me a copy of that? About that particular memo? I want to read it sometime. Check it out. Absolutely. Yeah. Very strange. Very strange.
Yeah, very strange.
You've had good luck finding strange things for this episode.
Oh, it gets stranger, my friend.
Very. Yes. By the way,
all that acting I did last week with my accent, I don't know if I can pull it off again this week, but I'll try.
Now this I will say this. I am this character that you're about to introduce us to. I was not aware of. I have asked our friend Ted Rubenstein in the interim if he is familiar with this individual, and he said, oh, yeah, that guy was wacky.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting story full of interesting phrases, interesting turns of phrases, interesting scenarios, interesting descriptives. Yes. Guys, you guys are in for a treat here.
You're in for a treat. But real quick, before we get to Dago, okay?
Yeah.
I wanted to touch on an almost similar type of story. You ever heard of Hank Killian?
Yes, I have. Hank Killian, but I can't place it.
Well, his wife, Wanda Killam, okay, whose husband, Hank, claimed to have inside information on the Kennedy assassination before he died mysteriously in 1964, has roped together the lives of 4 prime assassination figures: Lee Harvey Oswald, Jack Ruby, Oswald's fellow roomer, John Carter, and her husband, Hank Killian. So this poor bastard, Hank Killian, okay, his death was ruled a suicide, okay?
All right.
But officials have said they've never, ever seen a suicide like this before. And basically what happened was he supposedly killed himself by jumping through a storefront window and basically bleeding out, like slicing his neck on the glass and bleeding out inside of a store. He just went and jumped through a window, apparently.
Wow.
He jumped through a plate glass window in Pensacola, Florida. His jugular vein was severed, and he bled out on the scene. I didn't know until now. Coroner said that the police had listed the death as a suicide. In 10 years as a medical examiner, I've never heard of a man trying to kill himself this way. Insurance company investigator Jim Harper, who made a report on the death, said that is no sure way to commit suicide. If he had been cut anywhere else except the jugular, he never would have bled to death.
Yeah, that's. I kind of agree. I mean, if you're jumping out of a window that's a few stories up, then you can buy the suicide thing maybe a little easier, maybe.
Now,
in the case of Kennedy assassination deaths, I mean, you almost have to assume if somebody goes out a window on an upper floor, they were thrown, because that's just kind of the way it goes with people who, have find an untimely demise. No, they didn't jump out the window, but jumping into a ground floor store through the window to commit suicide, I don't buy. No, sir.
Right. Now, I mentioned this happened in Pensacola, Florida, which is a long way from Dallas.
Yes, I'm very familiar with Pensacola. I was there, I guess, 2 years ago in the spring for a few days.
Yeah, so what the hell was he doing there? So basically, he was running for his life, apparently. He said, one of 11 who have met strange deaths since the death of the president was stilled forever. He said, I'm a dead man, Killam claimed, after fear forced him to flee from Dallas, where he was linked with both Jack Ruby and Lee Harvey Oswald.
Could it be a gun running thing?
Well, threats in Tampa, Florida, where he later fled, then sent Killam hurrying home to Pensacola and to his appointment with death. He cried in anguish to his brother Earl, they're going to get me, but I've run as far as I'm going to run. It's time to make a stand and stick to my guns. So, yeah, I mean, just very weird. I mean, he's linked through John Carter, who was actually a roomer at 1026 North Beckley, along with our boy, Lee Harvey Oswald.
Okay.
And, of course, his wife worked for Jack Ruby, and apparently knew a lot of things.
So his wife was a dancer at the carousel?
Yes. Yeah. She hustled drinks there, apparently.
Ah, waitress.
Yeah.
Enterprising young lady. So what was his alleged connection to Oswald and Ruby? Just through the boarding house, or?
Yeah, there was a guy that was boarding there named John Carter who he painted with. He was worked with him as a painter.
Okay, and he lived with Oswald.
Yes. Now, the weird thing about this is that there was a trail of blood. Apparently, Killam staggered down the street dripping blood after he jumped through the window. He got as far as a parking meter where he died, approximately 20 feet away. So
sounds like to me somebody looking for help after they were thrown through a window.
Yeah.
You know?
There was the plate glass window of the linen department store was shattered because of the presence of blood approximately 4 feet inside the show window. It is my opinion that Killam jumped or was thrown through the window.
I'm betting on thrown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, detractors of this theory claim he was just a paranoid schizophrenic who, you know, kind of lost his shit and was thinking that people was after him.
Hank Killam. I wanna think that there's more to his story that I'm not able to mentally put my finger on it.
Yeah, now Wanda Killam, who called everybody honey and who sweet talked customers out of as much as $300 weekly in tips with her southern drawl, turns tiger when the Killam linked to 3 other figures in the JFK assassination is traced to her. He didn't really hardly know Ruby Honey except from the club. Then Jack ran him out and said he would fire me every time Hank came in. Jack didn't like husbands around. But nonetheless, Wanda Joyce Davis Killam not only put Hank with Ruby, but also with John Carter, a man who had roomed at the same boarding house with Lee Harvey Oswald. John Carter, honey, was a friend of Hank. He came to our house, mine and Hank's, after we were married. But we constantly sat around and talked about Jack Ruby or Lee Oswald back then. Carter told the FBI that he had never heard of Ruby and only knew Oswald slightly. But it was Carter who had spoken to Oswald around Mrs. A.S. Johnson's rooming house that got Hank Killam in the house painting business. It was around Carter working those house painting jobs that my husband was constantly hounded by agents after the assassination. They would go to the jobs and cause Hank to get in trouble, always stopping his work. He lost job after job, finally couldn't take it, and just pulled out for Florida. So
going back home. So he was from Pensacola, I guess.
Yeah.
That's it. You know, I can kind of see Ruby's point. Like, if you're going to run a strip club, the last thing you want is the husbands of your strippers hanging out, getting jealous, causing a fracas with customers, you know?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I mean,
So,
I'm with Ruby on that. If I were to own a strip club, I'm just saying, which I never would, because it's an absolutely immoral industry.
yeah.
Absolutely. Mr. Killam. Yeah, I'm like you. I don't know who jumps through inside a window on the ground floor if they want to hurt themselves. Doesn't make much sense.
Right. Now, next we're going to talk about somebody who was kind of involved in mysterious goings-on around the assassination. And he was basically a pimp, maybe you would call him.
Now, from what this is, okay, guys, you've heard us speak a lot about Thomas Beckham on this show. On Rob has studied and the story of Mr. Beckham on the Lone Gunman. I've spoke about him a little bit on the Dallas action. Dago here, the story that Rob's about to introduce you to, it's as if Quentin Tarantino wrote Thomas Beckham's story. That's the way this sounds. It's and Ted Rubenstein, he agrees. This guy's an absolute hoot.
Yes, I mean, it would make for a great movie. Now, I'm going to read a couple excerpts from an interview conducted by Mark Lane on December 14th, 1967, with a fellow by the name of Daryl Wayne Garner, otherwise known as Dago.
Daryl Wayne Garner. What an interesting story he has.
And this interview took place on Dauphine Street on the evening of December 11th, 1967. Okay?
Right smack in the middle of the Garrison proceedings.
Yeah, now Dago is the guy. He's been accused of shooting Warren Reynolds. Okay?
Now, Warren Reynolds has a couple of connections to the case. He was a witness to the J.D. Tippit murder, allegedly, and he was also a roommate for a while, or at least an employee of, lived in the house of Ex-United.
banged,
Yeah, you think?
blew,
Ex-United
was a
States.
power bottom for.
Ex-United States Army General Edwin Walker, the man that the Warren Report, the official story, tells us that Oswald tried to pop with a rifle on April 12th of 1964. So this guy, that's April 12th. Warren Reynolds knew Walker, worked for Walker, lived with Walker, and was a J.D. Tippit murder witness, which is very interesting. And according to Dago, he witnessed way more than that. Right, Rob?
Yeah. Warren Reynolds was shot in the head, okay, with a .22 caliber rifle one night while he was closing up the car lot that he worked at. Now, apparently the bullet did not go inside of his skull. It just kind of bounced off his skull and went back out. So he wasn't too terribly injured from this. But he says he went in the basement to turn the lights out, and somebody was either waiting for him or came in and just shot him in the head and ran off. Well, the police picked up Daryl Wayne Garner as their prime suspect, and they held him for a week. And after giving him a lie detector test, and after Nancy Mooney, who was a former Ruby dancer and one of Dago's many girlfriends, or prostitutes, or girls, whatever you want to call her.
Buddies.
Yeah.
One of his buddies.
They came to the conclusion that he wasn't involved and let him go. Ironically, a week later, Nancy Mooney was arrested for fighting with a girlfriend, and an hour after they had placed her in her jail cell, she had hung herself, committing suicide. Okay?
Damn. And this is Dago's girl, a Ruby dancer.
Dago's girl, a Ruby dancer. It doesn't make any sense. And Dago will tell you in his own voice here in just a minute. Okay. So, just for the sake of this interview, Dago will have a very indicative accent.
Indicative.
Okay?
Say that 3 times fast.
To differentiate himself from Mark Lane. Okay?
Right. And from Rob Clark.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. When did you first meet Jack Ruby? Well, Mr. Lane, this had to be back in the early 50s when I first met Jack Ruby. I knew Jack Ruby well. You would say close friends with him. I had girls I sent to Jack Ruby, and he was setting me up with guys who come from out of town. Jack Ruby was a homosexual, and his friends were homosexual. And they used to come and see, and Jack Ruby would tell them, point them out to me, and I'd go off with them. He never did have relations with them, like a normal person, referring to Ruby.
Right.
He said, I forgot, I didn't have that highlighted, but Mark Lane asked him, what about the girls you brought to Ruby? What happened to them? Well, he never did have relations with them like a normal person would. More or less. He'd just eat them and stuff like that. Hi, Grant.
Hi, Harrison.
Have oral intercourse with them, so to speak? Can you give us the names of some girls who you produced for Jack Ruby with whom he had oral intercourse? Well, Nancy Mooney, I used to. She used to work for him, and I used to take her there quite a bit. And then this girl named Sharon, he ate her too. And another girl named Jimmy.
A girl named Jimmy?
Girl named Jimmy Dale Ostall.
I kind of want to look her up, see if she's still alive. I'm not going to lie, just for curiosity's sake.
Oh, dear Lord.
So Dago knew all these people. He knew Ruby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you spell that? I believe it's Ostall. Now, I'm not sure. Ostall. I believe. She's married now and has got about 5 kids. I don't remember the last time whether it was her or Pat that I took up to Mountain Creek Lake, and Jack Ruby was in the back seat of the car with him. And then Jack Ruby had this oil man that was rich. We used to take him out, and we always called him Frenchie, because that's all he did, just French them, Frenching girls.
A rich oil man that Ruby knew. Sounds like Hunt, right? H.L. Hunt, maybe?
Maybe. Like the French kiss the girls. Okay. And what was Jack Ruby's relationship with Nancy Mooney? Well, she stripped there at the Carousel Club at times, and other than going home with him and entertaining some of the freaks that he brought along, he went to bed with them. But, he'd just eat her and everything like this here.
Everything like this here. Everything like this here. Where was this Dago person from?
Well,
I'm guessing.
He might have been from New Orleans.
The way you're with the voice and the terminology, I'm guessing McMinnville, Tennessee.
Were you living with Nancy Mooney during January of '64? I'm talking about the time to bring it back to something which will have some meaning to you, specifically during the time that Warren Reynolds was shot in the head. Yes, it was. She was living with you then? Yes, sir. In this Oak Cliff section? Yes. Rosemont? Yes.
Is that Rosemont Street or Rosemont Drive? Or is that the name of the road? I wonder how close that is to Beckley.
And he says, do you remember where you were living? No, I don't. But I can take you and show you the exact place that we lived. Lane says, I think it's better we not go to Dallas. Ha ha ha. Laughter.
Yeah, he don't want to show back up in Dallas at that point. 1967, no. Now, the DA had those weird photos of him that they'd given the FBI.
I bet Mark Lane had a giant boner growing right about now.
You think?
Yeah, well, he was an old freak himself.
That's what the FBI alleged, but I don't know about that, man. I don't know. He wrote some awesome books, did a lot of good work, for sure. Whatever he liked to do with pliers is his own business. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, his poor nuts.
Yeah, Grant looked up. Dude, it's in a document, for real. But go ahead, Rob. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Were you with her the night that Reynolds was shot? Yes, I was. On the night that Warren Reynolds was shot, me and her and that other girl that did work for Jack Ruby, she was working there. I don't know whether her name was, Little Lynn or something like that, because I was all high on the pills. I had just come back from the Vegas.
Now, there was a Little Lynn, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a stripper named Little Lynn. Is that the one that up until just a couple of years ago was showing up at the conferences?
I don't think so.
Which one was showing up at the conferences? And I heard that she had a cardboard cutout of herself in like 1963 in her stripper thing. Which one was? Somebody out there on that.
Candy Bar, maybe? I don't know.
I don't know. One of them was one of Ruby's strippers was showing up at conferences. Bless her heart.
Lane asks, you don't know if it was Little Lynn? And Dager says, well, I don't know for sure. I know this girl when I see her, and I talked to her not too long ago, and she said every time she thought about it, she could put the X-Lax company plumb out of business. In other words, she was scared shitless.
Oh, Dago's got away with words, doesn't he?
Oh, my God.
Do you get the feeling that maybe he was just putting a shine on Lane, that he's just having fun with him at this point?
I don't know, man. I don't know. He says, so the night Warren Reynolds got shot, I had just come back into town, and I went by there, and I hoodooed this girl out of an Oldsmobile. Which girl? Oh, another girl. This one here was out in Vegas, and I brought her down here, and she had just got a divorce. So I came by Warren Reynolds, and they knew I was in town, and this night he got shot. But during the time, I had run into this other girl that I know, and I got a hold of a Ford Falcon. And we was riding around in the Falcon that night, and we heard on the radio that there was a killer lurking behind a shiny car down on Jefferson, a new car. And I said, well, I hope it's Warren Reynolds that got shot, that sumbitch. So we came by there, but by this time the car was heating, running kind of hot. So I went down to the station, and I got some water for the car. And when I came back there, I seen a bunch of people there, and I stopped and I hollered at one of them, and they said it was Warren Reynolds that got shot. I said, oh, shit. So then after this, I took Nancy home and the other girl. We was all staying in this one apartment at this time, and I come back down to the copper stand. This here is right up. All right.
All right.
So then he talks about the police coming to his parents' house and confiscating a rifle that they thought he might have shot Warren Reynolds with. And Mark Lane says the police took the rifle. And he says, yeah, from the house. So after this here, I stayed around and me and Nancy went out and I got a pistol out from some queer out in Garland. I didn't know where it was at. This here was when I was supposed to get my gun running business down there and go back and see Jack on something. I never did find out for sure what it was. Anyway, I went and took the gun and I hocked it because I knew the police was hot on me. So they busted me down again. They took me back to jail. They gave me some lie detector tests. And they was asking me about Warren Reynolds being queer and everything with effect on the case. And right after they gave me the lie detector test, about 5 or 10 minutes later, after 12 o'clock, they told me to leave. So I left. And I got out and I went down and I got my car out of town and I went home and stayed there. And then I left and went back to Vegas. And when this time Nancy had went to jail for fighting or something, or some little old misdemeanor charge, and she hung herself, they said, about 3 or 4 hours after she was there. But this here was, all she had to do was make a goddamn phone call and she could make bond. There was no problem at all.
I wonder how close, how soon after Warren Reynolds getting popped was that?
About a week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pretty quick.
And, yeah. Lane says, do you believe that she hung herself? Ha! Somebody, sorry. Ha!
Sounds like old Dago's getting choked on one of those pills.
She wouldn't hang herself by herself. The only people who could help her, obviously, would have been the Dallas authorities. That's right. There's no way that this girl would have hung herself. She was just a diehard person. And she had everything to live for. She had kids, and she had everything she wanted to look forward to. She had it. She made good money. One week she might be broke. The next week she had money. I mean, what the hell? So they asked Dago, why do you think they hung her? And he says, well, before this here, you see, after I went to jail the first time and then she come down to testify to get me out, well, with me and her and this other girl who did work for Jack Ruby and Alda Anderson, we were sitting in a car and she was talking about the gun running and Jack Ruby and everything else. I never did remember what.
Man, who wasn't running guns back then? Wow.
And he says, who was talking about it? And he says, Nancy. She knew all about it. She knew the whole layout from the word go on. Do you remember what she was saying? Nope. No, I don't. I was high on pills.
Sounds like he's still high on pills with this interview in Lane.
Gun running to where? Well, Cuba, Bay of Pigs, Cuba, stuff like that. I don't remember, you see. I can't swear to it. But this here... but I know what they was talking about it. But we was in the car and I was knocked out and they was talking about it. So apparently while he was high on pills in the car, they're talking about it. Jack Ruby and Nancy Moon.
He's telling her all about running guns to Cuba.
Yeah. So
strange credulity. I don't know. I can't say that word. It's like my liberty. Yeah, that one. What you said. Yeah, it kind of strains that thing a little bit.
So he asked Dago, did Ruby ever talk to you about running guns? No, he never did say anything about running guns. But one time I was, always getting on to him about getting some money and everything. And he told me, he said, if I wanted to get some money, this here was not too long before the assassination. He said he'd get me fixed up to kill Kennedy or assassinate Kennedy or something.
I think Dago might be blowing a little smoke here, Rob.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, Doug, there's some shit going on in this interview that makes you think for a second, like, all right, that's bullshit. Like, this is total bullshit. I mean, he's totally fucking pulling the wool over Mark Lane's eyes. And then, but there's some other stuff in here that there's no way in hell this guy would know.
Things that weren't widely known by researchers or the general public in 1967.
Right. And we'll get there.
All right.
We got to wade through the bullshit first. So, still talking about Ruby. And can you fix the time when Ruby talked to you about the assassination? He says, well, this had to be in here pretty close to this here. I can lead you around where you can figure out pretty close. I was at the house. And then he says, whose house? And he said, well, my own house at that time. And Oswald came up there and told me to come down. Jack wanted to see me. I don't know whether he said Pinky or what. Ruby's nickname was Pinky? Yeah. When did you first meet Oswald?
Never heard that before.
Yeah. I knew Oswald from a long time, before he went to Germany and stuff. I guess here, referring to New Orleans. But I mean, I really got to know him when around Jack Ruby. Oswald was there, and he come out there with somebody else. He wasn't driving because Oswald didn't drive, I don't think. And I went down, and Clay Shaw was there, and I went to the office to see Jack Ruby. And Jack told me, I don't know what he said, this was Mr. Shaw or what. Anyway, he put it in a way that Shaw was over him. You know what I'm talking about? Wink, wink.
Wink, wink, like over him, like Ruby was working for Shaw.
Right. Yeah. He says. So Lane asked him, Shaw was superior in this operation, and he says, yeah. So I stayed in the office there, and Shaw asked me about if I wanted to be like a bounty hunter or like a TV show, a bounty hunter, like Dog the Bounty Hunter or something like this. If I wanted to assassinate or kill somebody or kill Kennedy or something, you know, something like that. Lane asked him, are you a good rifleman? Oh, yeah, I'm very good. I'm not bragging to you, but I'm real deadly with a rifle. Did Ruby know that you were a good shot? Yeah. Shit, I had a 6.5 rifle. I used to get halfway across the lake with no sight, no scope on it, and tear a 5-gallon can up where anybody could even think about getting close to it.
So just so happens old Dago had a 6.5 millimeter.
Yeah.
According to Dago.
Odd.
Yeah.
And then Lane asked him, did Ruby ever see you fire? He says, yeah. Around Mountain Creek Lake, rabbit hunting. I can take a 30-30 or anything like this and kill a rabbit running. Okay?
Now, wait a minute. Hang on. Is that the right gun for rabbit hunting?
A 30-30?
Yeah. I mean,
you want to blow the rabbit a new asshole?
We're both country boys, Rob. So if you think about what you know about rabbit hunting.
Must be big rabbits down there in Louisiana, son.
Yeah, the size of elk.
That's right.
That's what you used to shoot elk with. And, you know, elephants and shit. You don't use a 30-30 on what, you use like a 20-gauge shotgun, right? 12-gauge, something.
Goddamn, Doug, we weren't trying to eat the motherfucker. We was trying to shoot him. Boom.
Allegedly.
Nothing left but fur.
Apparently. just a little furry puff of smoke. That's all that's left.
So anyway, I had all the guns and stuff. I had, Jack Ruby's always coming around, and I check him. We just go out, and I shoot a lot out there, and he seen me shooting like a rabbit running, kill a rabbit running with a rifle. That's pretty much of a chore. I mean, you let a rabbit jump up and take off running and kill him running with a rifle with no scope. A scope would hinder you anyway. Shooting a rabbit running,
Yeah, that doesn't. I can't. Shooting a rabbit running with a scope.
Yeah. I mean, like, so, Dago's got some stories, folks. Now, but here's where it makes you think, all right, well, maybe Dago's got something here. So, Lane asked him, you've seen pictures of Clay Shaw since that time, and I know you've talked to Jim Garrison, excuse me, and members of his staff. Have they showed you pictures? Yeah. And he says, yes. And it is the man who you know to be Clay Shaw. He says, I told him what Clay Shaw looked like before I ever seen him before in my life. I told him what he looked like before I seen the pictures. Yes, I know that. And then you saw pictures of Clay Shaw, the man who you met in Ruby's club, as Clay Shaw is in fact the man who lives in New Orleans, who is the defendant in the case as Clay Shaw. Sorry, I had a coughing fit there.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Oh, Rob,
Dago takes a lot out of your boy.
I heard that. Hey, man, according to Outdoor Life magazine, 20-gauge shotgun or a 22 caliber long rifle. Oh. Small game rifle, 22. A 30-30 is decidedly a big game rifle there, Dago. You think Mark Lane knew that, or did he buy it?
Who knows? I don't think Mark Lane ever touched a gun in his life. except for when he might have been running away from Jonestown.
Oh, boy. Yeah. Yeah, don't even get me started on that madness.
So he's talking with Clay Shaw and blah, blah, blah. And Lane asks him, what did you talk about during that time? I don't know. Didn't say nothing. He was one of those. He was a weirdo. I don't even want to get into that.
I concur.
So then did he make any advances towards you? Oh, yeah. I mean, that's what I was talking about. And then he says, after this, another time there, Jack Ruby took me down to the Greyhound bus station and said that I had to go to New Orleans. And when I got to New Orleans, catch a cab at the Greyhound, go to Wanda's bar. And I'd never been to New Orleans before, That's where I met Clay Shaw. Did you meet a person by the name of Eugene Davis at Wanda's bar? He said, well, I've heard the name. But not at this time.
Eugene Davis.
Shaw knowed everybody there, anybody, when I was there.
Now, Eugene Davis is the cat that New Orleans attorney Dean Andrews originally said was this Clay Bertrand guy. Correct? Eugene Davis. That's that guy.
Yeah, it's who he eventually named as Clay Bertrand.
Okay, not at first, but later on.
Right, and that is why Garrison charged him with perjury.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So Lane asked him, well, what kind of place was Wanda's? And, well, it's a queer bar. Mostly homosexual patrons. Yeah. So I stayed there about 2 days. I got some clothes and everything and went back to Vegas. But now Oswald was down here passing out pamphlets, the freedom of Cuba and everything. So it's interesting that Dago knows that Eugene Davis had an apartment above Wanda's bar.
Yeah, that's not something that was widely known whatsoever.
Right. And that Oswald was seen there as well as some of these other New Orleans homosexuals.
Like, yeah, for real. And then you got Davis and, of course, what Andrew says about the two homosexual Latins that accompanied Oswald to his office when he was trying to get his discharge changed from dishonorable to honorable or something like that. So, yeah. But, yeah, there was a little apartment above Wanda's barn. That's where Davis lived. And that's where Andrews says he saw him once, correct? And chased him out of the bar or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, the guy saw Andrews, and Andrews took off after him like, hey, you're going to come with me and tell people. And the guy just runs out of the building, and Andrews says that did he say he should have hit him? Wasn't that the story he told? He's like, I should have just pounded the guy right there, but let him go.
I'm sure he had more flowery jive language than that, but that's the gist of it, yeah.
Yeah. It's a very interesting story. It's interesting that this Dago knows that, too.
Yeah, so now Dago was talking to Oswald here in New Orleans a few months before the assassination, and he says, yeah. Now, see, another time, me and him was together, and he asked me about General Walker and told me he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. Before Walker was shot at, and he wanted to know what I could charge to shoot him. He told me that.
Oswald or Ruby?
Oswald.
So Oswald tried, according to Dago, to hire Dago to kill Walker? Is that what he's saying?
Yes.
Oh, boy. You know what? I think this boy's got JVB syndrome. A little, maybe. Maybe.
He says, he told me about somebody that sponsored this deal for him in Russia. Because he was always telling me about Russia, what they did this and what they did that, and everything, You know about the way they work and their money and everything like this.
I can totally see Oswald being one of those guys. Like, he went and lived in Russia for, was it 2.5 years total?
Yeah.
Because he was in Moscow for a little bit and then 2 years in Minsk. But, I can totally see him being one of these guys that, when I was in Russia, like 50 times a day in conversation, just dropping it in.
Yeah. So then Lane asked him, how many times did you see Lee Harvey Oswald? Well, I've seen him a bunch of times. See, he stayed there in the bar all the time, and I talked with him, See, Oswald was queer. Oswald wanted, to mess around with me before once or twice. I don't know for sure. And Oswald messed around with all the other queers there all the time.
I don't buy that about Oswald at all. I know a few people have made that tried to make that accusation, but I just don't buy it.
Well, I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know.
Remains to be seen.
Yeah.
Not convinced either way.
You know, he used to mess around with Jack Ruby, and he was queer as hell. So Lane says, well, Ruby and Oswald has a physical relationship. Yeah. And this here Spanish guy. Oh, wait, what? Spanish guy who was a homosexual Spanish guy in New Orleans. Let's see. Carlos Brenier.
Yeah.
Carlos Quiroga.
Well, and again, you know what Dean Andrews says about the visit to his law office that Oswald paid. That he had a couple of known homosexual Latins with him that were known from the New Orleans area.
Yep.
So Quiroga and Brenier both. I was not aware of that.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, not that it, you know.
Wait till the next quick hits, buddy. I got a hell of a story for you. But I'm saving it for the next quick hits.
About Quiroga or
well, it's about Brenier.
Okay.
But we'll just leave it there because that's next show.
That's a whole different accent, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll have to work on my queer Spanish. How do you know that Ruby and Oswald did have a physical relationship? Well, it's something that you just have to tell for your own self. You know what I mean? You know, the way they carried on with one another. And Oswald was the same way. You know, he was real funny acting. And you just had to, the guy was sickening to me, actually. You know what I mean? Where did you see Oswald? Oh, there. He stayed there all the time. The carousel? Yeah. And Tippett came into the carousel. The Warren Commission said that Tippett never came down there, but that's a lie because I seen Tippett there. How many times did you see Tippett at the carousel? Oh, 2 or 3 times that I know of, and he was down there in his suit, and he had no business being down there. Jack Ruby was in his car with him, too, at one time. You saw them together? Yeah, I did. What was Tippett's reason for going to the carousel? You got me? I don't know. So, we do know from another witness that Mark Lane had interviewed that Tippett and Ruby were seen in kind of a ride-along situation, taking some guy down to the station.
Yeah, I do remember hearing that.
So that's interesting.
Very interesting.
Lane says, what was the relationship between Ruby and Tippett? He said, I don't know. They knew one another. They were friends. Yeah, see, my daddy had a garage, right down there by Oak Cliff Bowling Alley. And he seen the guys run down the alley who did the shooting right there off Patton, where Tippett got shot. And they run right by his garage. I was on the corner working, but this here, I can prove where I was. I was in Las Vegas at the time. I was in Las Vegas, Nevada, at the Chesterfield Club. On November 22nd, do you have any idea who shot Tippett? No, I don't. But I think they just used Oswald. More than likely, he was a guinea pig. But I've had friends tell me so many things, like the 3 guys at the station where Tippett was sitting at when what's the name of the station? The Good Luck Station.
The Good Luck Station. So he knew that. He knew that Tippett was hanging out there.
Yeah. What street is that? Advance Boulevard on Houston? It's Houston Street, right there across the viaduct when you come across the bridge. And from where Tippett was sitting at, you could see the high school and, the book depository building. From right there. So they said that Tippett took off with no reason at all, like a bat out of hell. He just hauled out real fast, run back up Ewing Street. You see, that's only about, 10 or 12 blocks from Patton, from where he was going? Yeah, so that's interesting. John Armstrong brought all this out in the 90s, but in 1967, Dago's telling you that he knows people who saw Tippett at the Glocko station right after the assassination. And he even names them, okay?
Okay.
He says, there's Shorty. He's another one there. Tom, Shorty, and Emmett. They all know me. They asked me just before I come down here this last time, what was going on, what's happening. And they was talking about Tippett taking off from out of there. And they was trying to get me to tell him something, So Lane's like, all right, my bullshit meter's going off. Can you tell me, Dago, who could state from their own personal knowledge that he or she knew that you and Jack Ruby were friends? Well, Audie Anderson can. Where's Audie Anderson? In Dallas, Texas? What's he doing now? I don't know. Last time I seen him, he was playing cards down there at the car lot.
I mean, in general, for a living there, they go.
Yeah. And so then he asked him, well, who is there in Dallas that you know that could speak about a relationship between Jack Ruby and Lee Harvey Oswald? He said, well, some of the girls I had. What were their names? Well, I believe this girl named Sharon would be one that could tie me into this. She's the only one who I could really say that saw them together. Do you know she's in Dallas now? I don't know. I know this other girl, but I don't. I know she was with Jack Ruby before, but I don't know if she knowed Lee Harvey Oswald or not. Now, this one boy that was with me the night that I took Lee Oswald over to the bullpen, his name is Shine Rankin.
Shine Rankin.
Shine. That's a nickname. Shine Rankin. He worked with the Pollock Paper Company, and then he worked for an air conditioning place out there right off Industrial. And he was with you when you drove Oswald to the bullpen in Arlington. That's right. Who did you meet at this bullpen? Well, Oswald went to see somebody. I didn't know who it was. You just left Oswald there? No, he stayed there. Oswald left us after we got there and seen some guy there. Then he came back, and then we left. So the bullpen sounds like a hell of a queer bar back in the 60s.
The bullpen. That's a pretty...
at the bullpen.
That's a good name for an establishment such as that. I'll say that.
So Mark Lane asked him, you said that Shaw was weird. In what way? Well, he liked to he liked to be whipped with ping pong paddles. He liked to be whipped with ping pong paddles? Yeah, and junk like this here. He and some of his friends wanted to have oranges chunked at them, tangerines chunked at them.
Okay.
Wait a minute. Go over in the corner and lean over and spread their butt apart and want you to chunk oranges at them and all that.
Have you ever heard of, you know who Cesar Romero is, right?
Yes, the Joker.
The Joker from the 60s Batman show. Okay. Rob, this concept of chunking tangerine and orange slices at a gay man's bare ass is not a foreign concept to me. And I'll tell you why. I'm a big fan of Gilbert Gottfried's amazing Colossal podcast. And about every fourth episode, he mentions this old rumor, this old Hollywood rumor, that Cesar Romero would pay. He would go find like street guys, like teenagers that are on the street, teenage boys in L.A., and he wouldn't touch them, but he would pay them to come back to his house in Malibu and pay them money to throw tangerine and orange slices at his bare ass.
Just make sure you keep those pitches high, son.
This is not a foreign concept. So now that I know that it's not just Gilbert Gottfried trying to be funny, that there's actually something to it, I got to ask, guys, why? Why? No, wait, I don't even want to know. What the hell am I doing? Don't even send an email. I don't want to know why this penalizes you.
Do not send any emails to quickhitsjfk@gmail.com explaining this to us. Or
send Rob photos of tangerines being chunked at your ass. One of the two.
Well, it's like this, Mr. Lane. I just love the way the acidity ate into my butthole. Made me shiver up and down all over. Gave me goose pimples.
Goose pimples.
On my knees.
Orange slices. So, wow. So Clay Shaw liked to have citrus pelted. He liked for his ass to be pelted, bare ass to be pelted with citrus. This does not surprise me in the least to learn this about Clay Shaw. No, because I believe I've read about the things they found in his apartment. Whips, chains, and slings, and all kinds
dildos.
Oh, man. Harnesses and just all kinds of crazy stuff. Bless his heart.
So, switching topics here. What do you know about Ruby and gun running? Well, not really out and off me anything, though, but him and Honest Joe was in it together. They talked enough about it for that. You mentioned something earlier about guns at City Hall that were confiscated by the police department from your apartment that you were holding for Jack Ruby. Yep. Mark Lane says, well, they found their way to Cuba eventually. How did that happen? Well, they went through Honest Joe. Honest Joe got all the auction off the guns, and he sent them to Cuba. You could buy anything from Honest Joe.
And there's another thing about this interview that sets my radar off, is the Honest Joe reference. Honest Joe's was a pawn shop in Dallas, for people that don't know, and he had a station wagon that literally had like a cutout of a giant rifle mounted to the top, and this station wagon was seen behind in the parking lot behind the grassy knoll adjacent to Dealey Plaza that morning, kind of parked back there. And our dear friend, Miss Gail Nix Jackson, wrote quite a bit about that in her first book, the Nix film, and about Honest Joe. This is the guy that had the giant racks of used Dallas Police Department uniforms for sale.
Yeah.
Anybody that wanted a DPD cop uniform / disguise to wear on November 22nd, 1963, merely had to go to Honest Joe's and flip through the rack and find one that fit.
Yeah, apparently they didn't have one in Ruby's size that day.
Apparently not.
How could Honest Joe get the guns from the Dallas police? Is that done openly and legitimately? I guess so. The Dallas police had it fixed up so he could buy them all, If they picked you up with a gun, somehow Honest Joe wound up with it.
Well, there you go.
Was there any relationship between Honest Joe and Jack Ruby? Yes. They was like brothers, like Ruby always said, and Honest Joe came around here all the time. Did you know Tom Howard, who, of course, was Ruby's early attorney? Yes, I do. Was he ever your attorney? Yes, he was. Did he ever have any associates? Yeah. Nay Wade, this here is the district attorney's brother, and Collie Sullivan. They're all in the same office. Henry Wade, the district attorney of Dallas, his brother was in the same firm with Tom Howard, who represented Jack Ruby. That's right. Old Nay Wade. N-E-Y, Nay Wade.
Well, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
That's a conflict of interest. That's what we call that.
Big time.
Big time. Big time.
Yeah, I had no idea. Huh.
So getting back to Nancy Mooney here, she was arrested in 8 days, and she hung herself within the hour, I think. Is that right? Yeah, an hour or 3. I don't remember what it was. She said that, I know one time she said that she knew something or other, and that about Jack Ruby or something or other, and she was pretty well uptight about it. I don't remember what it was. That was the phrase, she was uptight about it? Yeah. Meaning she was worried? Yeah. And she said she'd like to leave town until it blew over? Yeah. She was, in fact, I think, going to take her to Las Vegas or something or another. But at this time, there was a place burglarized out here, and they were shaking me down about that, so I got the hell out of town. I never did turn it into the police, but I had somebody to back me up. Where I was at when the burglary, some friends of mine's place got broken into, and I had somebody else to vouch that I was working when it was broke into, so I left at the time. Who shot Warren Reynolds? I don't fucking know.
It wasn't me. Wow.
Gun running. That's what she was worried about, you think? I'm real. I never did ask her about anything, and we never did really talk about anything. Of course, she stayed with Jack Ruby so much, she knew everything that Jack Ruby was doing. Did she ever indicate what it was that she was afraid of when you say she was worried? Yeah, just about Jack Ruby, I know. She was saying something or other about that. Yes, she was afraid that she had knowledge that affected Jack Ruby. Yes. And she talked to you about leaving town. Yes. And that was just a short while before. Yep, before she wound up dead, hanging right there in her cell. Yep.
And this is 8 days after Warren Reynolds is killed, roughly, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
So speaking about
or not
Jack
killed,
Ruby,
but shot. Warren Reynolds didn't die, but this is roughly 8 days after Warren Reynolds is shot.
Yep.
Because according to her, she was picked up the same day he was. But she wasn't released. She was held for 8 days for something. Huh. Wow.
No, he was held for 8 days.
He was held.
Yeah. She got him out of jail.
Okay. And then she was arrested subsequent to that for something.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So speaking about his relationship with Jack Ruby and the Dallas Police Department, Dago says anything he wanted done, he could get it. What did he do for the police? Well, I don't know. He had a few of them, that are, well, if you got into jail, he'd up and get you right out, Did he ever get you out? No, he never did get me out, but I never did ask him. But I know some of the guys that he did get out. We know he knew a lot of patrolmen, but did he have any higher-up contacts? I don't know. But he knew everybody around there. He was a real sort of funny kind of guy. One day he was friendly, and the next day he wasn't, One day he was, real likable, and the next day he wasn't. A regular horse's ass. The type. Yeah.
I bet he could be, man. He ran with a tough crowd, Ruby did.
I messed around him mainly for the money that I got, and that's all.
Makes sense. Old Dago sounds like a hustler.
Oh, yeah. But, I was thinking, Doug, what was the name of Oswald's landlady in New Orleans when he lived on Magazine Street?
I cannot remember.
Well, I'll tell you.
Okay.
Her name was Jessie James Garner.
Oh, wow. And this
Could
guy...
it be? Could it be that somehow these two were related? Could it be his mother?
Well, now he said he'd never been to New Orleans before. At that one point when he went and went with Ruby and met Shaw and stayed at Wanda's bar.
But he said he had known Oswald from before he went to Russia.
Okay. So, oh, wow.
Implying that he had been in New Orleans before.
Yeah, that would imply that, wouldn't it?
That would imply that.
But then he tells Lane he hadn't been.
Right.
Jessie James Garner. Oh, wow.
And anyway, he that's it for Daryl Wayne Garner, who ended up...
Wow, what a guy.
6 feet under, nearly 2 years after this interview. Rest in peace, Dago.
Passed away in 1969. Well, there are a few curious things. The Wanda's Bar and the Honest Joe's reference, Honest Joe's Pawn. That makes my antenna go up a little bit, because I don't think that whole connection with Honest Joe's has been explored by researchers as much as it might merit, and I find that interesting. He had all the uniforms, the old uniforms. He sold all the DPD uniforms there. But that bit about him ending up with any gun that DPD confiscates is interesting to me.
Yeah.
That's an under the table kind of deal, round the back kind of deal.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in there that makes you say, but then there's a lot of stuff in there that makes you go, huh.
Yeah. And a lot of stuff that makes you go,
Right.
Kind of like Beckham.
Take it for what it's worth. I mean, there's a kernel of truth in everything, so try to find it, folks.
Try to find it. A lot of his story makes you think it's that that phenomenon I spoke of earlier, where somebody they don't have a direct connection to the case, but they have at best an outside tangential thing. They were around at the time all this was going on, so they cherry pick a few details and insert themselves into the story. And you know exactly who I'm talking about. But I don't know about this guy. Seems a little different. I mean, he certainly didn't seek any spotlight or any donations or any accolades or followers.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, unlike some other people, but what a story, man. Crazy.
Yep, so thank you, Mark Lane, for giving us Dago.
Thank you very much, Mark Lane. And thank you, Rob, for giving us Dago's accent.
Yes.
That was fantastic.
That really hurt my soul to do that 2 weeks in a row. And my larynx.
And your larynx. Well, there you go. Thank you very much,
Thank
Rob.
You, Doug. You can chunk oranges at my butthole anytime.
Duly noted. Duly noted. Absolutely.
Just make sure you take the skin off first, sir.
Well, you're talking about the orange, right?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. Speaking of buttholes, Rob, I need to retort to someone.
Please.
It's not a really long retort. Don't have a very long one. But I would, if I may, sir.
Pray do.
Pray. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a segment that we here at Quick Hits like to call Rob, I uploaded a show about a month ago, The Dallas Action, in which I pointed out contradictory statements made by one Colonel L. Fletcher Prouty. Did you listen to this show?
I did, and I loved it.
Thank you, sir. There were people that did not.
I can imagine.
They did not. Now, let me, first of all.
Does it rhyme with Glenn Romantic?
No, I haven't heard anything out of old Glenn, but okay. That's a pretty clever thing you did there. I appreciate that, Rob. I do. That's like pizza cheese.
Yes.
Pizza cheese. No, Rob, first of all, let me point this out to everybody. I didn't accuse Fletcher Prouty of contradicting himself. I didn't imply that he contradicted himself. I just read it.
Fletcher Prouty contradicted himself.
Yeah, I just read it. But exactly 6 people say they were so upset that they would never listen to the Dallas Action again. 3 of those 6 stated that they would never listen to Quick Hits again. So to those 3 people, I just want to say thanks for joining us. Glad to have you back. That's all I got.
Yes, welcome back.
Welcome to the show.
Yes.
Rob, do you have any retorts to make?
I don't, but I do have one small Facebook shenanigan.
All right. Well, you know what? Without further ado, we will move to our next segment, ladies and gentlemen, one we like to call Facebook Shenanigans. Lay it on me, Rob.
All right. This post comes from actually a former guest of the Lone Gunman podcast, who shall remain anonymous.
You're going to tell me after we record, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I will give you a hint. He's a lone nutter.
Well, I know that's not Ted.
No.
It's not Carmine.
No.
It's not Ed Ledoux.
Nope.
No. Drawing a blank. But I think I know. But pray, continue, sir.
All right. These are 10 things that he says we often discuss and debate the same issues over and over again. So for the millionth time, folks, number 1, the backyard photos are authentic. Number 2, the tramps were just tramps. Number 3, Clay Shaw was not Clay Bertrand.
Now,
Number 4,
that's possible.
Yeah. The Zapruder film was not altered. Number 5, the JFK autopsy x-rays and photos are authentic. Number 6, Oswald had enough time to get from his rooming house to 10th and Patton. Number 7, Oswald had enough time to get downstairs to encounter Baker on the 2nd floor. Number 8, Oswald was a fairly good shot. Number 9, Jack Ruby was not in the mob. Number 10, Dorothy Kilgallen never interviewed Ruby, and she had nothing to disclose about the assassination. And they said, please discuss.
Okay, let's start with number 1. Read that off to me again.
The backyard photos are authentic.
He has no way of verifying that is absolutely correct.
Right.
Okay.
We don't. We have the camera negative for I think 2 of them.
Yeah.
But not the main one. And Marina's always stated she took one picture, that's it. But yet, somehow, 3 of them have popped up alongside some very interesting other versions of the backyard photo.
It is his opinion that the backyard photos are 100% authentic. There's absolutely no way in hell of corroborating that. None. No. At the same way that I have no way to corroborate and prove 100% definitively that they're fake. Correct. He can't prove 100% definitively that they're authentic. That is simply his opinion. Okay.
Right. Some asshole named Henry Fareed with a computer said that they were authentic, so according to him, they're authentic.
I could go hire an asshole with a computer to tell me they're fake.
Right.
Boom.
2, the tramps were just tramps. Doug, I agree with that statement.
I do too, 100%.
Okay.
100%.
Clay Shaw was not Clay Bertrand.
I'd say it's probably likely that he wasn't.
It's likely that he wasn't, but did he ever use that as a alias or AKA?
Entirely possible, but entirely impossible to prove that he did not.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So that one, Clay Shaw was not Clay Bertrand. Again, it's like the photos. There's no way he can prove that he never used that name.
Right. He wasn't physically Clay Bertrand, but did he ever use the name?
He could have. He could have called. He could have used the name Clay Bertrand when he called Andrews to let Andrews know it was him without saying his name. Like he may have been under the impression that Andrews knew that he used this alias. So when he said, "Hey, this is Clay Bertrand," Andrews was supposed to make the connection. This is Shaw.
Or maybe he just said that it's Clay. And that in his stupor, his drug-induced stupor in the hospital there, Dean Andrews just assumed
it was Bertrand.
It was Bertrand.
And
not Shaw.
This Bertrand that worked at the show bar.
Right.
If he said, "Hey, this is Clay," that maybe their voices sounded a little similar. Maybe he was in bed, he was asleep, he was in the hospital,
Right.
He could have, this whole thing with the Bertrand thing could have just been Andrews getting mixed up as to who he heard.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we know from the H.L. Arledge article on Clay Bertrand, that he was familiar with Lee Harvey Oswald. He was a bouncer at the show bar.
Which is a great article full of new information that I wish other people would pay attention to, quite honestly. Mr. H.L., good job, buddy.
Yep. Number 4, the Zapruder film was not altered. Well.
Again.
Not provable.
Prove it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's clearly missing some frames.
Mm-hmm.
And, we've seen a copy, 4K scan of it that looks like it was altered a little bit. So,
jaw-dropping. Freaking jaw-dropping is what that is. We saw. But now, what he's doing in his post, I could do too.
Yeah.
All right. I could go, Arlen Specter was not smart enough to figure out the ballistics in the case. All right. How can you prove he wasn't smart enough? Have you seen his career? I could do that all day long with this guy. Oswald could not speak fluent Russian. Well, he's going to say, well, you can't prove it. You can't go talk to Oswald. Exactly.
Number 5, the JFK autopsy x-rays and photos are authentic. Well, not according to Dr. David Mantic.
Yeah.
Asshole.
Again, prove it.
Right.
Show me a chain of custody for these photos. Or better yet, put your hands on all of the photos.
I guarantee you this guy has never seen them in person. And Dr. David Mantic has.
Yep.
So, good luck. Number 6, Oswald had enough time to get to his rooming house, or to get from his rooming house to 10th and Patton. Bullshit. I call bullshit.
Oh, I'm with you.
He also didn't have enough time to get from the schoolbook depository to the rooming house on Beckley by the time alleged in all this horse's assery.
The timeline is so bad.
It's so bad.
So bad.
It makes no sense whatsoever.
Not if you're using logic and reason.
Right. Number 7, Oswald had enough time to get downstairs to encounter Baker on the second floor. Sure, he did. Yet, he must have been wearing his invisibility cloak because nobody fucking saw him.
Exactly.
Despite, Victoria Adams and Sandra Stiles and Dorothy Garner, another Garner, being on the 4th floor landing, despite Jack Doherty saying he was flying in between the 5th and 6th floor and 1st floor after the assassination, despite Otis Williams stating that he went back inside and went up to the 2nd or 4th floor to use the telephone. Despite all these people, despite, who were running up and down the stairs, nobody saw Oswald.
Yeah.
Nobody. And nobody saw each other. So
he had time to do it, but it's like you said, 100 people didn't see him do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 8, Oswald was a fairly good shot. He probably was. But
define fairly good.
Right. Fairly good. Is that going to cut it?
Fairly good, that shooting, fairly good doesn't pull that off. And besides, it doesn't matter if Oswald was a fairly good shot because I've got the testimony of Robert Fraser from the FBI in 1977 saying, I cannot tie that bullet to that rifle to the exclusion of all other rifles. It doesn't matter if you think Oswald's a great shot. It doesn't matter what kind of crazy-ass trigonometry that bullet, gymnastics, the bullet pulled off when it left the barrel. The FBI guy is saying, I cannot prove to you that bullet was ever in that barrel, ever traveled down that barrel. Significantly different. Okay, was he a good shot with a slingshot? Because he damn sure didn't use that rifle.
Number 9, Jack Ruby was not in the mob.
Please.
Maybe he wasn't a made guy.
Right.
Maybe he wasn't a capo. Maybe he wasn't a foot soldier, but he damn sure had ties to the mob that are undeniable.
He was either an associate, which is an unmade guy who, again, an associate, or he was a victim. And when I say that, I mean a guy who got his startup money from the mob and for his business, and he's one of these cats that gets a visit every week for the envelope.
Yep.
But either way, that he was not tied to the mob is just silly. It's just silly. Jewish guys, that's why he couldn't get made, because he's Jewish, but he's from Chicago. He ran a strip club. He was mobbed all to hell. Guys from the North don't get to run guns. Jewish guys from the North don't get to run guns from Texas to Cuba without mob connections in 1963. It's not done. Period.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
At number 10, Dorothy Kilgallen never interviewed Ruby, and she had nothing to disclose about the assassination.
How does he know that?
Well, nothing ever officially came out.
Right. One way or the other.
I mean, apparently there had to be witnesses to her interviewing him in prison, in jail, I would think.
Wonder what would make him say she never actually interviewed him. What information is he privy to that we are not?
I don't know, but I know people have written books about it, so...
Written books about it, yeah. I mean, do we have the visitor logs for Ruby's entire stay in the penitentiary between shooting Oswald and dying? Has he seen these? Has he examined these? I'm sure he will after hearing this, and I'm sure that we're going to get an email or a comment from him, which is fine, fine. But I don't really want to debate Dorothy Kilgallen, but I'll just say that I think that is an unfair statement to make as well.
Yeah, it's me too,
for sure.
All right, that's it for Facebook shenanigans.
Well, I have a shenanigan for you.
Oh, you do?
I do. I do.
Pull out your shenanigan and shake it at me, sir.
That's what she said. This is a post. Now, the reason I want to play, I want to read you something that was written on Facebook about Bobby Hargis. Are you aware of Mr. Bobby Hargis, Rob?
I am. Motorcycle cop extraordinaire.
He was, to the back? He was behind and on the left side of the limo. I take
Yes.
it? Yes. On the left side of the limo. Motorcycle cop during the motorcade, during the parade. Now, I'm not going to name the man who posted this, but you are familiar with this person. He used to be in the discussion group that I helped moderate online, the JFK Critical, what's it called? The JFK Conspiracy Critical Thought and Analysis. Sorry about that. I can't believe I forgot that name. But now I'm not sure exactly who Steve Morgan is, but what this person is doing is relating Steve Morgan person's story about meeting Hargis. Okay, Rob? And it starts simply, I believe Steve Morgan. Now, I want to read you this. This is apparently what Hargis, this is his encounter with Hargis in 1981. He says, this Morgan person, I met Bobby Hargis quite by coincidence on Sunday, August 16th, 1981, at a completed oil field location near Dime Box, Texas. He had retired from the Dallas Police Department the previous day after 25 years as a motorcycle officer. I had ordered a dozer and qualified operators from an oil field support company called Rising Sun Equipment Rental to repair a leaking reserve pit that I had discovered on one of my exploration locations. I was a field superintendent for the oil company. I had 2 drilling rigs and 2 workover rigs running. Hargis had volunteered his employment information to me after he delivered the equipment. Apparently, Hargis was the lowboy driver, was the truck driver that delivered this equipment that he ordered, the bulldozer and a couple of other things to this location. Now, and Hargis apparently volunteered his employment information right off the bat. Like he got out of the truck and said, "Hi, I'm Bobby Hargis. Until yesterday, I was a Dallas police motorcycle cop," or something like that, right? And he said, now, I mentioned that he would have been in Dallas on November 22nd, 1963, when President Kennedy was assassinated. He assured me that he was, quote, the motorcycle officer right behind Kennedy, and that no one was closer to JFK at the time of his death than he was, and that he'd seen the whole thing. I had a lot of work to do, but I could tell that he was not a fan of JFK. As I started to leave, I said, I don't think Oswald killed the president. And Hargis replied that he knew Oswald had not killed the president, that JFK was shot from the front. Almost stunned by his flippant remark, I said, are you sure? Bobby Hargis replied, sure, I'm sure. I saw the whole thing. His blood and brains were splattered all over me. I had to go home and take a shower and change clothes. Then he began to laugh and describe Jacqueline Kennedy's terror in the filthiest of terms. The landowner, a 73-year-old widow who had just returned from church that Sunday afternoon, was standing next to me. Hargis continued, you should have seen Jackie trying to get her ass out of there. I commented that I was under the impression that she had climbed onto the back of the seat in order to retrieve the back of JFK's skull. Hargis replied, bullshit. She was trying to get her ass out of there. She thought they were all going to get it. I asked who he thought shot the president from in front, and he replied that he didn't know and he didn't care as long as that son of a bitch was dead. I asked him, how did it feel to see the President of the United States killed before your very eyes? Hargis replied that it was the greatest thing he had ever seen, that he went home that night and had the best sleep he'd had in the 3 years since, quote, that son of a bitch had been elected. Then he continued, a Catholic didn't have any business in the White House anyway. I had had my belly full of Bobby Hargis. I said to him, let me tell you something, buddy. I'm a Roman Catholic. Hargis didn't say another word. He threw the remaining iced tea out of his glass that the landowner had brought him and virtually shoved the empty glass into her hand while giving it back. He snatched up the sandwich and he left. So, That's what Bobby Hargis had to say, according to Steve Morgan. Now, Rob, I have a soundbite here of the real Bobby Hargis that I want to play with you. I want to play for you, and you tell me if they sound like the same guy, if it sounds like it jives. Okay?
Yes.
All right, here we go. This is about 2 minutes of an interview with Bobby Hargis that you can find on YouTube, uploaded by the JFK Assassination Forum. Here we go.
Here we go. Bobby Hill.
Do you feel that Oswald acted alone?
Well, I can't say for sure, but I know one thing. The bullet who killed President Kennedy came out of his gun. And his gun was up on, he worked in the school book depository. You put the facts together, and you come up with, he is the one.
It's been suggested, of course, since you were on the left side, that because the brain matter and the blood went in that direction, that indicated a shot from the front, from the grassy knoll.
No.
You don't believe that?
No.
Okay. Does it bother you when your testimony is used to justify that?
It does, but it's been so long ago that even the conspiracy theory, there was no conspiracy whatsoever. There was 2 shots fired, and both shots we found the bullets. All that seems to me to be, most people that write about these things wasn't there. And to me it sounds ludicrous. They wasn't there, but they can write about it.
Mm-hmm. When you say it sounds ludicrous, you're talking about the idea of there being a second person up on the grassy knoll?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You said it bothers you when your words are misinterpreted. Have you ever done anything about it? Have you ever come down on a researcher for...
No. No, I don't. What I do is I just let it go in through one ear and out the other. I don't have. One day I'll stand upon the throne and I'll answer for all the sin that I've committed, just like you and her.
So, Rob, sounds like to me 2 different people.
Sounds a lot like Dago.
You talk about the what I read or what you heard?
What I heard. Now, obviously, these Dallas police weren't the brightest bulbs in the package.
No.
But it sounds to me, and I've seen this video before, he seems very sincere and emotional, when he's talking about this stuff, and a very even keel, low key kind of guy.
He's very adamant.
Doesn't sound anything like the encounter described by Steve Morgan.
No.
At all.
Well, he's telling 2 completely different stories.
Yeah.
So either this Morgan person is putting words in did meet Bobby Hargis and is putting words in his mouth, or he didn't meet Bobby Hargis. I don't know. But this individual who posted it starts his entire thing with the sentence, "I believe Steve Morgan." Well, buddy, you certainly have the right to do so. So
yeah, or Bobby Hargis is a chameleon, and Steve Morgan met the real Bobby Hargis, and this guy who knew he was being interviewed by assassination researchers and knew he was on videotape and recorded for posterity, sang a much different tune than what he really thinks or how he really feels, which is possible as well.
It's possible, but I'm like you. He seems pretty sincere and adamant in the video, and I kind of get the feeling that the soundbite we heard is probably that Oswald was the lone assassin. Is probably his real opinion on things.
There was some nonsense and horse's assery around these 4 JFK horsemen, as Larry Rivera calls them, the 4 motorcycle cops there that apparently Fred Newcomb did interviews with in the early 70s, where these guys were singing a much different tune, talking about the limo stop. I think Hargis even said he got off his motorcycle and stopped and picked up a piece of skull and threw it in the back of the limo, and just they're describing shit that is not captured on any video or photo.
But do we have audio of those interviews of these?
I don't know. I didn't care enough to really look into it, because it's horse shit on the face of it.
The limo stopped so long that they were sunbathing on the hood of the Lincoln, basically. They stopped and got a tan, cooked a hot dog in Speedos. Then all the Secret Service guys went over and had a drum circle in the median.
Jackie flashed her tits at everybody.
Yeah. Somebody crocheted a basket, and then they got back in the limo and left.
Yes.
23. What is it now? It's up to, it started at it's up to 21, 22, 23 seconds. They say the limo completely stopped now.
Oh, yeah. Despite all the eyewitnesses in Dealey Plaza, despite all the photographic and video evidence.
Despite every fucking thing in the world ever, people are still out there saying that the limo stopped for 23 seconds.
Yeah. Oh. Way to go, Larry Rivera.
And look, guys, I'm just saying, if you listen to this show and you watch that, I'm disappointed in you. I just want that known.
There's another feather in your cuckoo cap, you son of a bitch.
Oh, and what a cuckoo cap it is. Holy cow.
My God.
So yeah, that's my, I believe that, the poster starts his post out by saying, I believe Steve Morgan. Based on what I've seen and read so far in my life about Hargis, I do not. That's just me.
Agreed.
So that is Facebook shenanigans, Rob, for the
love it for number 14. Right. So now we get to the Rob Presents Listener Emails segment of Quick Hits. All right. Let me dip in my hand to the mailbag here.
Quick Hits.
And rustle around a little bit. I feel some pennies and some lint.
Rob has his hand on his sack.
Yes. I'm frantically searching the bottom of the mail sack here.
Excellent.
Oh, here we go, Doug. Here's one.
Did you find one?
Hi, Rob and Doug.
Well, hello.
I reach out to you because I would like to invite you and your show Quick Hits to Audrey, the podcaster community. My name is Eugenio, no relation to Jim, and I am the founder of Audrey. We have made it our mission to help podcasters cross-promote each other to grow their audiences jointly. No thanks, Eugenio, but thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, I mean, if you had some swag, like some cool ball caps or T-shirts or something, that we would get gratis for joining, maybe we'd be in. But
and if you'd like to pay us, that would be great too.
That would be excellent.
Other than that, pound sand, Eugenio.
Yeah, according to
minus the D.
According to the one guy there, that we're already paid shills though, like making bank.
Right.
So
yeah.
Wow. We should get our CIA handlers to set us up with our own highly profitable podcast network.
Yes, I'm rich, bitch.
That I would be, yeah. And no, we are not shills for the CIA, but we're willing to negotiate, right, Rob?
That's right.
That's right.
Always.
Daddy's got bills.
That's right. All right, no, we do have
everybody, the really cool people know we're joking about that, but, there are some that listen to this that probably wouldn't take that joke very kindly, or probably won't take that joke very kindly.
That's okay.
That's okay.
We love you, too.
Yeah.
Keep listening.
Keep listening. They will.
They'll be back.
Always do.
They'll be back.
Yeah, always come back. Always come back.
All right, now we got a
Thanks, Audrey, for your email.
Yeah. Listener Mike. Gentlemen, having found this podcast as well as the Dallas Action and the Lone Gunman this week.
Boom.
I'm a kid in a candy store. I guess you are. God damn, you got 300 and some episodes to listen to.
Wow, man. That's a good 2 weeks of binge listening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Almost 400. It's going to take me a few months, but I'll eventually listen to all of it. The pacing of your shows is ideal and the topics are fascinating, but what I most appreciate is that from what little I've listened to thus far, you guys approach the information critically. We do.
We certainly try.
I've never participated in any forums or had contact with anyone in the JFK research community. You lucky bastard.
Yeah, really, man. Don't dip your toe into that madness. You might end up on Facebook shenanigans. You never know.
Or even had the desire to do so, but I think I might get thoughtful and rational responses to questions from you guys. I could ask 50 off the top of my head, but I'll try to restrain myself.
Well, you'll certainly get responses. That I can guarantee you. All the other
Yes.
stuff is subjective, I suppose.
Have you watched the Last Narc docuseries on Amazon Prime? And if so, what are your thoughts on the Felix Rodriguez allegation?
Wow. You know what? Oddly enough, I have not watched it, but I have been planning on watching it. And Ted Rubenstein, our friend Ted Rubenstein, asked him about this. The same day I asked him if he had ever heard of Dago, and he says that's credible to him. The allegation that Rodriguez was there when this cat was captured and tortured.
Okay. I have not seen it. But now Felix Rodriguez, he's got some deep CIA connections, buddies with George Bush Sr., and probably
this
not a
dude
good
was
dude.
always CIA. Always.
Yeah. He says, have you ever listened to and possibly commented on Daniel Sheehan's UCSC courses on his Romero Institute YouTube channel? His Rulers of the Realm course somewhat comports with my "it wouldn't surprise me" view of humanity. But it's more likely a mixture of historical fact and speculative bullshit baked into a cohesive and often self-aggrandizing narrative. His JFK Alternative Theories course seemed like it was going to be a scholarly review of the evidence and selected theories. There was even a class on critical thinking, but when he got to the class on the mobbed-up Cubans theory...
Yeah, the S-Force, the Traficante
Yep.
S-Force stuff, yeah.
He just came out and told the class that he knew with certainty that this was what really happened because in the midst of Watergate, Traficante told F. Lee Bailey's investigator who told Sheehan's investigator who told Sheehan.
Yep, Big Mike.
So it must be true.
His name was Big Mike, was they called the investigator. And that is an interesting story. If you go back, we say Michael is our emailer?
Mike, yeah.
Mike, back a couple of years ago, maybe 2-3 years ago, I think 2.5, something like that. Ted Rubenstein and I did a long episode of the Dallas Action together called The Legend of Traficante's S-Force. And we used several sound bites, quite a bit of audio from Mr. Sheehan explaining that entire scenario. And, what can I say about Danny Sheehan? First of all, you can't say anything bad about Daniel Sheehan. Good Lord, that dude has been doing the good work for years. I mean, it's his lawsuit that was responsible for exposing the Iran-Contra scandal. He filed a lawsuit that got all that stuff kicked up. And he does know a lot of things. Now, whether or not he was being shucked and jived a little by Traficante's guy, I don't know. It could be entirely possible that, it's that whole thing about that Heming used to say, like these people are convinced they paid for the assassination, but they didn't. They think they did, but they didn't. It's that kind of deal.
Right.
Maybe Traficante, I don't know. All I know is I get what he's saying about the Sheehan thing. Like you said, there's a lot of truth there, and but I don't know if I buy it 100%. But at the same time, I'm never going to say anything but nice things about Danny Sheehan because I think he's an honorable dude, and man, he's done righteous work. He's always fighting the good fight, fighting for the forces of good, for sure. Yeah, I'm a fan.
Now, just for time's sake, I'm gonna condense some of his questions here because he's very lengthy when asking them. But next, he questions how legitimate the Gene Wheaton lead was when it comes to things like Ted Shackley and Quintero and Jenkins and some of these other participants that he alleges. as with Sheehan's narrative, he says pissed off Cubans with a sprinkle of national security state actors and a pinch of mobsters makes perfect sense, but does anything Wheaton said really qualify as evidence?
What Wheaton said was strictly what he picked up.
What Wheaton heard.
Yeah, like sitting at the table while these guys talked. You know, sitting around the kitchen table, being in the room with them while they talked. And it was over years and years and years and years. And the thing about it that made me, when I first started becoming aware of Gene Wheaton, was watching his interview, the short one. It's like 20 minutes. It's on YouTube. And what made me think, hey, this guy's for real, was his refusal to speculate. Okay? Someone would ask him a leading question or the question that he was asked that required him to speculate to answer, he stopped, right? He stopped. And the guy says, well, did Oswald think he was inside, like working against the plot to kill Kennedy? And he says, I don't know what the hell Oswald thought. You need to go ask him. I'm just telling you what I heard. That's all. And I kind of went, okay, well, that's different than 99.999% of people that might be in that position. And I asked, well, I think maybe he thought they would do that. They wouldn't stop and go, the hell should I know? Right? So, but you got to look at the people, like if you got to find the Wheaton leads, go to the Mary Farrell Foundation, type in the Wheaton leads, Larry Hancock, David Boylan. It's a white paper that they're still doing, they're still working on, they're still revising. I'm hoping it turns into a book from those guys. No pressure, David, but he's a buddy of mine. But yes, I think that's substantial because you got to look at the people that Wheaton talked about connect to. Because when you funnel it down, it doesn't take very long to get to Rip Robertson and Amworld and the Congo operation that happened right after Kennedy's assassination. I think people say, oh, well, the gunmen were probably murdered, killed. They were probably special forces guys, whatever. I think some of them ended up in the Congo, some of the hit team, and some of them scattered. Some of the ones that scattered stayed in Florida. But please do not, Mike, do not discount Mr. Wheaton. No.
All right. Is there any reason to believe anything Tosh Plumley or Richard Case Miguel have ever said? No. Doug?
No.
Okay, next question. I'm sorry for the length of this. I've always struggled to assign the right amount of credibility to any specific source. I usually, obviously, obsessively go down rabbit holes, form theories, cast doubt on them, and say, well, fuck it, maybe Oswald did do it, and give up for months or years. My hope is that the way you guys rationally approach the information in digestible pieces will slowly move me from 97% uncertainty to 50, but I'd be happy with 92. Last question, doesn't Judith Very Baker strike you as someone who has a lot of cats? Or is it just me?
Man, yeah. She strikes me as somebody that's got a lot of something.
A lot of dogs and a lot of peanut butter.
And testicular fortitude to go out there and keep saying the crap she keeps going out there and saying.
Thank you, Mike from Texas.
Thank you, Mike from Texas.
All right, next up is Mr. Matt.
Hello, Mr. Matt.
Gents. He says, I was listening to a podcast from last year and was not sure either of you had seen the below video. I do not have a Vimeo account, so in case you do, he sends us a URL. And basically what it involves is there were two 15-year-old witnesses to the encounter of David Phillips, Lee Oswald, and Antonio Veciana in the lobby of the Southland Center in Dallas in September of '63. Wynn Johnson was one of the two. I have moved these videos to Vimeo, blah, blah, blah. All right, and now Matt says, I think his story is suspect, but then again, ... Thank you, guys. Matt.
You want to go first with Wynn Johnson?
Yes. Look, this guy is the male version of Judith Very Baker, okay? He's got absolutely no evidence whatsoever to back his story up. And the girl that he alleges that he was there with has never backed his story up, won't admit to it. But, of course, she's too scared to come forward and say the truth for fear of her life, I'm sure. Look, we know this is horse shit because Judith Very Baker says it happened. We know it's horseshit because there's been a lot of investigation into the movements of David Atlee Phillips and where he actually was in September of 1963. And it was not in Dallas. And neither was Antonio Veciana. And I don't even know if Lee Oswald was, for that matter. So
Yeah.
to put these three together in a building in Dallas in 1963 in September, I'm not buying it. And I don't buy Wynn Johnson.
And let me tell you why I don't buy these two. Because, let me say this real slow, and real carefully, and real calculating, Rob. The declassified documentary record now proves that at no time, that Antonio Veciana ever claimed that David Phillips was training him or helping him or working with him in Cuba. Was Phillips actually there? That entire 6-month span is bullshit because Phillips was never set foot in Cuba during that 6-month span. They thought his cover was blown. They pulled his ass out after the Cattleman conspiracy guys got arrested because he was at that meeting. He was done. He was done. He was burned in Cuba. He was burned in Cuba prior to the time that Antonio Veciana says they met. Period. So Wynn Johnson is obviously effing lying just because the rest of the story, we know the rest of the story's bullshit. So this has to be bullshit too.
Agreed.
There you go.
Thank you, Matt. And our last listener email comes from my A student, Miss Caroline.
We get it. We got an email from Caroline on the last show, didn't we?
We did, but it never aired because it didn't record it.
No, I mean the number 13, the last one we actually uploaded.
Oh, okay, yeah, we did get an email from her, but this time she sent her questions.
See,
answered.
I'm still in I keep forgetting that we've already told the listeners that you and I, because we were left to our own devices, we're not smart enough to actually, we bungled it. So I'm still in that act like it's the first time.
I'm still kicking my ass. I didn't record Skype as a backup, but it is what it is. Yeah. And this show's better anyway. So as we go.
We usually are the second time around, for sure. Let's be honest.
Caroline is a big fan of the Lone Gunman podcast and the Dallas Action.
Thank you, Miss Caroline.
Quick hits.
Yeah, you rock.
Yeah.
We appreciate your listenage. Is that a word?
Yes.
Okay. Hey,
it is now.
It is now.
Now, she has a lot of questions, so we might break this up between two of the next shows, or else we're going to push our time limit here, Doug. So
okay.
We'll just get through a couple of them. I think we did all of them on the missing show, but it took forever. So we'll just hit a couple here, and we'll hit a couple on the next show.
Now, what are you going to do when you get an additional email from Miss Caroline in the interim?
Well, we'll just keep tacking it on, and eventually we'll answer them all.
She is banking questions, basically.
Yeah, we just might do a whole show dedicated to answering Miss Caroline's questions.
You know what we should do? We should have a special segment. We should get her to record herself asking us the questions.
Well, funny you say that, Doug.
And we'll have a segment called Letters from Caroline.
Funny you say that, because on the newest Lone Gunman podcast that came out yesterday that you haven't heard yet, I have a segment using a new app. It's called Swell, where you can ask a question. I can ask a question, or you can ask a question, and have it recorded audibly, and then listeners can answer the question audibly in a soundbite. And my A student, Miss Caroline, is the only one who seemed to have figured out how to use the Swell app and answer my two questions of the week so far.
Oh, I hit the microphone with the thing. Do I get to do it as well?
If you like.
I want to. I'm going to do that later. Harrison and I are going to do that riding home. We're going to listen. I just want you to know we're listening to the Lone Gunman on the way home. All right.
Here's how you do it.
All right.
You go into the App Store and you download Swell, Swell. Okay? And once you get the app downloaded and you sign in and you create your little account, you search for @TLG Podcast, and I will pop up. And there it will have everything that I've posted there. And you can hear my question, and then you can leave an audible response that I play on my show. So it's kind of cool. And we can maybe even do it for quick hits. I mean, who knows?
Dude, I am
cool
literally installing it.
hear.
I'm installing Swell on my phone as we speak.
It's actually kind of cool to hear the listeners in their own voice ask the questions. And it saves Caroline and Mike and all these people a lot of typing. You know
So
what I mean?
basically, we could. So now that I've got the Swell on my phone too, we could set it up for quick hits, and people could do that if they want.
Yes.
That is a fantastic idea. Why didn't we think of this and develop this app to enrich
know.
ourselves financially?
I know.
Damn.
So by the time you hear this, folks, download the Swell app and search for @QuickHitsJFK. And you will be able to leave a voice message or question or comment or whatever you want to leave. I'll put up an open post and we'll play it live on the show next show. How's that sound, Doug?
Fantastic.
All right. Let's
Not
get
only
back to Miss
that,
Caroline. Yeah.
optimal. It sounds optimal.
Yeah. All right. Let's get back to Miss Caroline and her questions. She even says there are many here and many more I have. So if it's too much, you can break it up for different episodes, and which we will. Here we go. She pays us many compliments and then says, okay, don't read that on air. Okay, so we'll just jump right to the question. And it's about something we actually talked about earlier. Do you think Marina found out about Ruth Payne working for / being an agent / informant? She didn't want to and never did speak with her again after March or May of '64. Or do you think she knew all along? She seems to show dislike towards Payne on the Oprah show, but then again, Marina always looks sour. Things that make you go,
That's true.
That's because she hasn't douched in 40 years.
Oh, come on, Rob. Too much, buddy. Too far.
Oh, sorry.
Now, what we were talking about the Jim Garrison grand jury testimony. I don't think she, whether or not she trusted or liked Ruth Payne before the assassination, I don't know. But I do believe that when Marina says the Secret Service told her not to trust Ruth Payne because she was CIA, and I kind of believe that Marina believed that, for sure.
Yeah, when she was staying with her, quote, manager, James Martin, after the assassination, after she was released from the Six Flags prison she was in for a week, Ruth tried to visit her, tried to drop off toys and clothes for the kids and stuff, and Marina wanted nothing to do with her at all.
Just cut her right out. And if you know that Marina really had to start to be suspicious about, can you imagine this happens, right? The president's shot, they arrested Lee, accused Lee, then the Secret Service tells her, hey, Ruth Payne is CIA, stay away from her. Can you imagine the suspicions that just the questions that raised in Marina's head, in Marina's mind?
Yeah, especially if she didn't know there was a rifle in the blanket in Ruth Payne's garage.
Right.
Because you got to remember, she was pregnant at the time, and when Ruth Payne came to pick her up in New Orleans, they loaded up all their shit in Ruth's station wagon and took it to Dallas and unloaded it into the Payne's garage. Now, for neither one of them to pick up and move this blanket and notice that it is freaking stiff as a board and heavy as hell.
How do you pick up a rifle wrapped in a blanket and not know you're holding a rifle wrapped in a little blanket? Yeah. Two grown-ass people.
Right.
Strange credulity, again.
Yeah, and all of the weird items, found in the Payne's garage, and, that's how Lee got the job at the school book depository, was from Ruth Payne's suggestion.
Yep.
And, just what we know now of what she was telling the FBI at certain times about Lee Oswald. And just, just why are you being so nice, lady? Why are you doing all this for this poor, stinky Russian girl who has no money, no life, no clean underwear, no, what are you doing?
Well, she sort of had that outward veneer as a pacifist, as a Quaker, maybe she's just trying to help. Good Samaritan, I would guess is the cover story anyway. That's the cover story.
Maybe she was like Jack Ruby, where she just liked to eat her.
I remember reading that there were reading quotes from very explicit letters somewhere that were allegedly from Ruth to Marina in those very tones, I guess, but I've never actually seen them. I believe that was in Ira David Wood III's assassination chronology. He talks. There's some quotes in there. I'll try to find those for the next episode. But
I think they were published in Quaker House Letters.
Well, yes, exactly, and they are very. Some of them are kind of sexually explicit. Allegedly from Ruth to Marina. So whether or not that they were authentic, if they really existed, I don't know. We'll check those out. We'll read those. We'll go over those on the next show.
Next up, she says, Joan Mellon, honest opinions on her tales. Supposedly the LHO Don Norton situation, supporting her financially, minimally. I think disinfo agent. Is Joan known for disinformation, or is she out to lunch? That's a large statement to make, and I don't follow too much of her work after that story.
Well, Joan Mellon.
Well, I think, Doug,
I really don't have anything
Caroline,
bad to say about her.
Miss Caroline has them mixed up, I think. It's not Joan Mellon. It's Mae Brussel.
Oh, okay.
That actually this happened to, where she was speaking at some college in Ohio, and I think John Judge was with her, maybe Bill Kelly, I don't know.
Oh, the Don Norton thing.
Yeah, the Don Norton thing, where this guy was like, don't you know who I am, May? Don't I look familiar to you? And she said, this guy never really came out and said, hey, I'm Lee Oswald, but that he did resemble a Lee Oswald if he had lived another 10 years. And he did seem to know a lot about the case. Now, was this guy just pulling her chain? More than likely.
Probably.
And sending her a little bit of money, a little bit here or there, what's 10 or 20 bucks, here or there. It's definitely something interesting to think about, that Oswald could have possibly lived beyond the assassination and beyond his alleged death. There's, of course, the two Oswald theory, the double theory, the Harvey and Lee theory.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go down a rabbit hole with all this stuff. And I sent Caroline down the rabbit hole with Don Norton, and this is probably payback. But I think she got Joan and May confused, and I would certainly tell her, do not lose faith in Joan Mellon, because I think her book on the Jim Garrison situation in New Orleans is one of the best out there, and it's got information in it that you'll never find anywhere else. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
I got no problem with Joan Mellon.
Neither do I. She, and that the whole thing she got from Hemming, her Angelo Morgado narrative, as far as the Odio incident, is very interesting. Very interesting. And the way she presents it, very believable. It's good work. Joan Mellon just does good work. What else can you say? Right?
That's right.
That's right. Hey, and as far as Mae Brussel goes, don't lose faith in Mae Brussel either, Caroline. I know Mae was kind of flaky sometimes. She went off on tangents sometimes that were unnecessary. Sometimes she fell for some crazier type conspiracy stuff. But she always came back. She's always centered, but she's the original. I mean, what we're doing here, Mae invented this. Radio about the Kennedy assassination, okay? Pioneer. I would love to have known Mae Brussel, and I would love to shake her hand. And I still listen to World Watchers Archive on a commute back and forth to work at least one day a week.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
Great stuff.
All right, next question. Do you think LHO's diary was real? episode 133 of The Lone Gunman with Carmine, it was brought up as something factual when discussing Marina and Lee writing about another woman.
I do think it's real, and I think the spelling errors in the original handwritten manuscript are proof that it's real.
Yeah, I think it's real, but I also think that it was written in a very short time span. I believe Edward Epstein actually had this diary analyzed by some kind of psychological person smarter than me, who concluded that it was written in 2 sittings and written very quickly.
Yeah.
And what I think it was, if it was anything other than a diary, what I think it was an attempt by Oswald to basically put everything into writing that he came across or saw in the Soviet Union as kind of a debrief to his handlers when he got back. That's why he cared so much about getting it typed up and all this and that. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I'm with you.
All right, last question we'll do here from Miss Caroline.
And we'll do the rest of her email on the next episode.
Yep.
Cool.
This one is in episode 27 of The Lone Gunman. Man, that's years ago. You seem convinced that Bill Lovelady might be the one who is prayer man. I know you obviously find out more information as you go on through the years, but I'm wondering your stance on who the prayer man is in your eyes today. I swear I see Lee, but I won't ever debate it, but I personally feel like that is his shape, his aura. It looks like a ghost in the doorway.
I have no opinion on that. I mean, it's not like, I resent the question or anything, Caroline. Don't get me wrong. I just don't have an opinion on it. I just don't. Prayer man standing on the steps, look, you could. Even it doesn't matter to me if you think Oswald was in the basement taking a shit in Roy Truly's lunch bag. I know he didn't fire no damn bullets from no Mannlicher damn Carcano damn cheap ass rifle. So I don't, I haven't really went down the who all standing on the front porch rabbit hole. Honestly, it's just one of those things.
Yeah, I've since changed my tune since that show. Because the prayer man is actually caught in 2 different video images of that day, the Wigman and the Darnell. And apparently at the time I had only seen one, of which Lovelady is not present. But the other one, you can clearly see Lovelady is in the shot. So prayer man obviously cannot be Lovelady because Lovelady is there. And, also, we see not too long after the events of the assassination, a video where you see Bill Lovelady and Bill Shelley walking down the sidewalk as Marion Baker is running into the building. As far as Lee being prayer man, I think Bart Camp, who I've had on my show many, many times, he's been on this show before, has done the best work on proving that Lee Oswald was in fact prayer man. And basically proving that the second floor lunch encounter never happened. That if any encounter happened, it happened on the first floor. And that Lee had merely stepped outside late, was only out for maybe 30 seconds or a minute right after the assassination and occurred. He went back inside, was milling around on the first floor, as Marion Baker and Truly came in the building. And even, we have Fritz's notes who, claimed that Oswald said he was out front with Bill Shelley. We have Hostie's contemporary notes that he took as Oswald was being interrogated, where he states that he was out front watching the presidential parade. Those are what we call alibis, folks. And those are what was denied to Lee Harvey Oswald and to the public for 56 years. Lee Oswald had an alibi, and the DPD took it away and deep-sixed it like you wouldn't believe. Oswald himself stated he was out front at the time of the assassination, at the time of the shots, and they took it away from him.
Yep.
So I think something is definitely going on there, and I don't know if we'll ever be able to clean up either one of those films enough to be 100% sure that that is Lee Oswald in that image. But with all the circumstantial evidence, with the alibi, with Oswald's own admissions, with several other eyewitnesses claiming things actually happened on the first floor and not the second, the evidence, circumstantial as it may be, is very, very good that Prayer Man is Lee Oswald. Because I can't see any Joe Schmo off the street, weaving their way up through these 17 or 20 people on the steps of the school book depository to get to the very top.
Yeah, it would make more sense that it's somebody from in the building. I will say that.
It's somebody who wasn't out on the steps to begin with everybody else. It's somebody who snuck out the swinging glass door behind everybody else unnoticed, didn't say anything to anybody, stood there, watched as the president went by and got shot, and probably at the moment thought, oh, shit, this is how it's going down. Okay, I got to figure this out, and went back inside the building and happened to have a Coke in his hand.
Yeah. Oh, my God. They did it.
Yep, and who left shortly thereafter. So, to me, that's when you apply a little logic and critical thinking to the whole Prayer Man thing, it's what makes sense. It's what makes sense.
I agree.
So that's my take on, Prayer Man. It's definitely not Lovelady for sure.
And anytime from now on, anytime I say I just don't have an opinion on a subject because I haven't thought about it, just from now on, it's what Rob says. Whatever Rob says. That's where I'm at. If I don't know, if I'm not educated about a subject, it's basically, well, ask Rob. He knows. That's where I go with that.
Look, Bart's my friend. He does amazing work, and you pretty much can't refute it. That's why I like Carmine and I like Bart and people like David Josephs. They're very hard to find a chink in their armor because their research is so well done, so complete and thorough.
Yep. And let's face it, full of those things: critical thought, quality analysis, logic, and reason. The things that we tend to gravitate toward those people. And avoid the kooks.
And Bart will be the first one to tell you, hey, we're never going to know 100% whether this is whether Prayer Man is Lee Oswald or not. We're never going to be able to clear up the film enough without the camera original, and maybe not even then. It's just so old and deteriorated, and it is from a moving picture video. It's the blur is there because the camera's moving, and we're probably never going to know. So the trick is going to be proving it umpteen other ways. And there is no other white male employee of the School Book Depository that is unaccounted for at that time other than Jack Doherty. And Jack Doherty didn't say that he was out front on the stairs.
And Oswald did.
He said he was on the 5th and the 6th floor. I mean, I don't even think Jack Doherty knew where the fuck he was at. But he definitely wasn't out on the front steps.
Yeah.
So, and Oswald said he was. So there you go, folks.
Very logical.
Take that to the bank.
Take that to the bank, Miss Caroline. Thank you for the email too, Miss Caroline. We will get to the other questions at a future date.
That's right.
That's right. Well, Rob, dude, what an awesome show we've put together. Come on. Hey, wasn't that awesome? Wasn't it great? Wasn't it fun?
Yeah. Welcome to Long Hits.
Long Hits again, yes. Now,
is Grant still awake?
Grant, so is my son.
Oh,
crazily enough, yeah.
We must have been somewhat entertaining.
We must have been. We're always somewhat entertaining. Right? Somewhat, yeah. What do you think, Rob? Should I begin the Magnum PI music process of taking us out of number 14?
Yep. Fire up the Ferrari, baby.
And there it is. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Again, please go and listen to my Assassination Research podcast, The Dallas Action, presented by Wall Street Window. It is literally everywhere that you can find quality podcasting. We are on about 24 platforms now, from Spotify to iHeartRadio to Spreaker to Podbean to everywhere in between. As Rob says, just Google it. You will find it. Rob?
That's right. And if you love Doug's show and if you love this show, then you'll probably like my show, the Lone Gunman Podcast. Again, you can find it the same place you find any of Doug's shows or this show, or just Google the damn thing. Follow me on Twitter at the Lone Gunman 7, and follow Quick Hits on Swell at Quick Hits JFK. If you would like to have your voice heard on this very show, we can make it happen.
Yes, we can.
We can.
We can.
Yeah, we will.
We will. Yeah. Well, you got to set up the soundbite too, Rob. Remember?
Yes. Sorry. All right, folks. Tune in again next time when in an exclusive interview, we'll hear the notorious James Fetzer explain to Doug in an exclusive interview just how he plans on paying off that huge legal penalty imposed on him by saying,
I'm gonna put my application in a cost guard, I'll show you fucking guys.
Oh my Lord.
We are out.
Peace.